Trustee Corrigan, lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Please rise, I salute.
Okay, approval of agenda. I would like to add a closed session at the end of the meeting.
I'd like to pull M2-1 off of the consent agenda.
Okay. I want to pull 1, 2, and 3, so all the AEDIS contracts.
I'd like to ask a few questions about 5 and 2.5.
Okay. And I just want to make a comment on M2 or M7. I don't want to pull it, but I nice to have it separate. We got to take over Ray's position on the PG&E bill. Anything else?
I move we approve this agenda as amended.
Second.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Anybody that would like to be recognized wants to podium and introduce themselves? If not, public comment cards? Debbie Simmons.
Good evening. My public comment has to do with regards to board bylaws and the fact that you guys had a special retreat meeting this last weekend and had it posted on Friday. I do have concerns in regards to that the agenda for the item did have an action item, and board bylaws states that you're not supposed to have action items at retreats. And so I want to make sure that you follow the bylaws. When I first got on the oversight committee, there was a lot of discussion about public trust of the board, of the administration, etc. And that was something that I've been hadn't seen, and I have been very impressed with how the board has operated. This one came up as kind of a red flag for me because the amount of discussion that was, the amount of time that was allotted for the retreat was like 150 minutes or something like that for open discussion items. However, the amount of time that was posted before the board was to convene, and the fact that the location was at a board's residence, which is totally, it seems to be compliant with the bylaws. It's of concern, and so as an oversight committee member, it's important for me to have integrity, and I just wish the same of you. I do want to compliment the board, and that I've noticed most recently that you've been posting the minutes to the closed sessions and actions taken during closed sessions, and I greatly appreciate that. I hadn't seen that until the last couple of months, so I do appreciate that. So just wanted to express my concern and just say, I do want a few that regularly attend the meetings, and I am interested in what the board is doing on behalf of the school. So thank you.
Thank you. Brian DeCarly.
Good evening. My name is Brian DeCarli. I'm the Department Chair for Physical Education. And I understand tonight you'll have some recommendations for some of the maybe changes or revisions in regards to the A through G component. I know a couple board meetings ago you guys were discussing in relation to P some of the bottlenecking concerns with regards to some of the how it's set up right now. Currently it's starting or effective right now. In PE, freshmen and sophomores are both taking PE. After that point, if they don't pass their 5 out of 6 fitness testing requirements, they're continually re-enrolled until they pass. I know there's been some bottlenecking again, as I'm saying, because of some concerns of Pete getting in the way, maybe, especially in that sophomore year.
You know, I don't mean to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but if you choose to, you can speak to us when we get to that agenda item. You don't have to do it during the public comment, because it sounds like that you have some comments on an agenda item, so you can.
I can sit back down, that would be,
Yeah, I mean, then we're going to be concentrating on it at that time.
okay. So forget everything I just said. I will reintroduce myself in a few minutes, and I'll come back.
No, but it'll help you.
All right, this is supposed to be non-agenda items, right?
Yeah.
Is that the way too? Okay, actions taken in closed session, we didn't have closed session. Take actions regarding student matters. We had 2 expulsions. Who did that?
With respect to student 01.31.2017.007, I would move that we follow the principal's recommendation, which was to to expel the student for this current semester, and that expulsion be enforced.
Is there a second?
Excuse me, second? Yes.
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 And then in regards to hearing 01.31.2017.008, I move that we accept the principal's recommendation of expulsion. Yes.
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 Oh, it's expulsion enforced?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, approved minutes of January 13th.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second that.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, reports and discussions, academic presentation, 01, Randy and Cindy. Oh, Kevin, sorry. Kevin.
Good evening, President Boulay and Board of Trustees. Tonight we're before you briefly to provide you with some information on our Freshman Academy and Academy 2 program. The entire presentation is in your board packet, pages 2 through 19. What we're here to do tonight is provide you with some brief highlights and then be available to answer any questions that you may have. So Freshman Academy was first developed in 2007 based on the needs of freshmen at that time. So these needs are some of the highlights. Our principal and administration at that time recognized that there was a need to provide some type of support for our kind of lower middle of the road students. So these were students that didn't need to be in outdoor support necessarily, didn't need to be in reading intervention necessarily, but had somewhat struggled in middle school, and we were concerned about their success coming into high school. So there was a gap between the supports for our students. We had those intensive interventions for freshmen. At that time, we had AVID for our upper middle of the road students to push those students towards college, and then we had our EP program. So we introduced the Freshman Academy. The program has developed over the years. Generally speaking, we've run 1 or 2 sections of Freshman Academy and 1 or 2 sections of what was Sophomore Academy, is now Academy 2. Our upperclassmen can also take that course. During the couple of years that we did not have an AVID program, the Freshman Academy program did grow to up to 7 sections. Now that AVID has been reintroduced, we're back to 2 sections of Freshman Academy. Mr. Loeb, who's our longtime Academy teacher and the heart of our program, is going to share with you just a few highlights. There are many more within the presentation, but just a few highlights of the program that he feels are most important. And then Assistant Principal Flower will wrap it up by providing you with recommendations and next steps.
Thank you. If it's okay, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Corrigan and Ms. Nehme on their election to the school board. I don't think I've been here since you guys have been on the board, so welcome and congratulations. So as Cindy mentioned, it's kind of morphed over the years. It was strictly freshman academy for a while, and then I encouraged the sophomore academy. And then I've noticed the need, a lot of kids, juniors coming back to me and saying, hey, Mr. Lowe, can I take it again? So we came to you last year with the idea of making the second part of it open to sophomores, juniors, and seniors. And I wanted to start out my filling in the blanks here with saying that it's just been fantastic having the upper division kids in the Academy 2 class. One of the top things we did this year was we took a group of Academy 2 students over to Monterey Peninsula College and Cal State Monterey Bay. I got funding from the Baylor Education Foundation, got a mini grant to do that. And I think we took 28 kids and had a great experience. And I was gauging success, hoping that one student would enroll in college or would, do that. But right now there's 6 of them that are, in the process or have already, begun the process of enrolling in college. So that was definitely a highlight this year of the upper division kids. The seniors, I was so proud of the seniors the first semester. And I know that any Fs is too many Fs, but of all the seniors I had, there were only 2 senior classes failed. One girl failed English 12 and one boy failed government. But other than that, they've all passed all their senior classes, so I was really excited about that. But a typical day in academy, we start out with what I call the phrase of the day. We take a typical colloquial phrase that kids may or may not have heard, and we go over that. For example, the one we're doing today is it's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Kind of explain that a little bit. We talk about a graduation theme of the week. We do the bulletin, Pledge of Allegiance, those type of record-keeping things. And then I typically do some type of supplemental lesson in core activities, either math, science, world studies, chemistry, whatever the hot topic is at that particular time. We also do some other kind of life units. We did what I call the Get a Job unit, where we go through the entire process, get a work permit, fill out an application, resume. We actually have Mike Sanchez donates his time, comes down and does interviews with the kids. So we actually do a mock job interview, and got a lot of kids, being placed right now in part-time jobs and stuff like that. So we do that. Do a unit on, we haven't got to it yet because it's not April, but we fill out an income tax return, do a personal budget. We just recently spent some time working on how to get a driver's license, so there's a life skills component to it. And then on a daily basis, we do homework, supervised homework time. And I have all the textbooks for all the different subjects. We have the Chromebooks now. I have an old printer that we can print pages out of the workbooks for. Cindy was gracious enough to get us a budget for materials and supplies, so we pretty much can provide all their needs in terms of homework and things like that. Some firsts that occurred in the recent years. Had the first Academy student be on the school site council last year. I was really proud of that. Had my first Academy student elected to ASB this year. He's like the junior class vice president. Had 2 kids that made all A's for the semester, semester all A's, and we had our first college visitation this year. So, the program we're trying to take it to that next level, right? Mr. Tenenbaum, the old coach there, we're taking it to trying to go to the next level. I wanted to say that there's, in the section in there on data, it mentions the 2.0, the 3.0, and the 3.5. And one of the things over the course of time, the kids, each year when we do the final exam, I have them give me feedback on what was the most helpful thing in class and what they liked least. And I've tried to kind of morph the class a little bit based on their recommendations. But one of the things that we've done a lot of in the last 2 or 3 years is case management. Sitting kids down, doing detailed grade checks, doing detailed credit analysis, talking to them about, if you do this, if you do that, and so we talked about a 2.0, a 3.0, and a 3.5. So 2.0, I want every kid, my goal is to try to get 100% of the kids to at least have a 2.0 so they can access campus life, right? To be academically eligible, go out for a sport, sport, go to the dances, those kinds of things. That's kind of the minimum. And then I try to push for the 3.0 because that's what they need to get into college, right? A 3.0 is for a CSU, and then, try to get some of those kids up to that 3.5 level where they're looking at UCs or private schools or different things like that. And so I'm always pushing them to get mad at me because, Mr. Logan, I'm passing all my classes. Yeah, but if you got the C+ to a B-, you get another grade point. And so we've calculated grade point averages. We do credits. I'm sure they're tired of hearing about 220 credits and all those different kinds of things. But that's something that's kind of morphed into a little more of that individual case management, and just about anything that I can do to help the kids out, sports paperwork, all those different kinds of things. That's kind of what it's become. And I'll close by saying that this year we have 4 sections and they're full. I think we could definitely probably do one more of each next year. I talked a little to Mr. Ramirez about that and the possibility maybe of loading them at the beginning of the year with the idea that, knowing that kids are going to move in there throughout the course of time and stuff, and I think Ms. Clower is going to talk about that a little bit too and stuff, but especially with the freshmen, I would even recommend with the freshman kids, after 6 weeks, if they're struggling in their classes, get them into, if nothing else, it's not that I'm not claiming that I have like the magic wand or whatever, but I think the fact that somebody is like personally on them, I think some of those kids, just that right there is probably, a big issue. So those are some of the highlights that I wanted to throw out there, and I think Ms. Clower will take over next.
So at the very end of your packet, as I go through here and you talk about the data, are some recommendations or next steps. So we really want to focus on how we can identify and place students properly. Like Coach Logue was just talking about, the sections are full right now, and a lot of students do enter and exit through the program as needed, and we want to make sure that it does stay flexible. We also thought about considering a pilot where the students in an academy section have the same teacher for the same courses. And I know Coach Logan could speak about it more, but when you have several students that are in Algebra 1 and they each have a different teacher and they may not all be on the same page or on the same lesson, it can become a little cumbersome when they're trying to get any sort of assistance. So possibly piloting something like that would make it even more powerful for the students during that time. Also looking at an integrated approach with our academies within our resource program right now. So this is our first year with Resource Academy with special ed students, and because we're going towards an inclusion model, we would like to think about what are the possibilities of us trying to combine or possibly do a co-top type academy. So I've been working with Tom Sullivan, who's one of our special ed teachers, to really go over what does the academy for the resource program look like in comparison to this academy, and are there any similarities, and is there something we can do to possibly integrate that program. We definitely need to make sure that we are giving students access to the AVID program. So like Coach Logue was speaking of, there are students that are at that 3.5. I believe you said a few that were at all A's. Are those students that could possibly transition into our AVID program? Because it looks like he with his program and his work has gotten those students up to where they need to be and possibly transition into AVID, which would be a step further, which is that guarantee to a 4-year university. And then really clearly define the effectiveness of the program and looking at some academic indicators of success that we can bring back and look at that data on an ongoing basis. Anything else you'd like to add?
I guess we were going to ask if anybody had any questions that we could answer for you or anything. Yes, sir.
I don't have so much a question, but a compliment really. My wife Julie Corrigan runs the swim lesson program for San Benito Aquatics, and I think last year she had a grand total of about 45 employees through the course of the year, of which probably half of them came as recommendations from Coach Logue. And the difference between the kids that Coach Logue sends and the kids that just show up to ask for a job is night and day. They show up, they are local, they speak loudly, they state who they are and what they want and why they want it, and they know what it means to get a work permit, and then you have kids that maybe mom comes and says, hey, can you give little Johnny a job or whatever, and my wife says, no, little Johnny needs to come ask. So I want to commend you, just on the life skills portion alone, you're doing things for those kids that no one else is doing, and that when you know, sort of filter around the business world, kids don't have these days. So kudos to you for teaching them that stuff.
Thank you.
I have one. You've got collect qualitative data, which you were speaking of. Have you tried surveys? Like, and get kids' input on what they think they would need, or even parents, and see if that will help you move into that next fluidity level, or, you know, what's next for them?
Well, like I say, on the final exam, I have a question about, like, I asked specifically, what have I done that's personally helped you the most? What did you like most about the class? What did you like least about the class? And so there are over the years, it's morphed. It's changed from what I first started, you know, to what's going on now. I haven't reached out to the parents. Now this year, I did get invited to Rancho's elective day, and just because my daughter was signing up, I got invited to the HDLA, you know, to over there too, the day that they were signing up and stuff. You know, we've always had a table at 8th grade preview night to try to discuss that with the parents and stuff too, but I haven't actually surveyed the parents, no.
Okay.
So I just have two questions or two comments I'll make for you guys. One, I really like the approach with the introduction, the meat and substance, Randy, and the strong recommendations. So the team approach again was very powerful, and I'm sure the board appreciated that. Two, Randy, you're the true epitome of a true Baylor. And when I asked you to do this, you didn't flinch. I know the board needed to hear the positive message because you make a true difference on our campus for our students. So continue that effort.
Thanks.
Thank you for all your hard work and
I
dedication.
still have a question.
Yeah, no, I was actually waiting for questions.
Yeah, raise my hand. Okay.
No problem.
At the end, there's another recommendation. Can you move it up a little bit? Can you move it up a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So empiric, like, okay, if I get my scientific words right, I did some, what's the word? The opposite of empirical, somebody that's good with science. When you're just anecdotal, sorry. I did some anecdotal research the first few years trying to follow the kids to see if they were successful after they took academy. But it got, you know, with more and more sections of it, it got to be too hard for me to like track them individually. So that was that last one, was to see if we could track their success after they'd been in academy in terms of graduation, you know, those types of things. And then there's a mention there about the bell, you know, possible working it into the regular scheduled day, some type of intervention class. I mean, for those of us who are around here long enough, I loved the advisory period. I was probably one of whatever 10 teachers that loved it. Would be happy to see us go back to that. I don't think, you know, if you asked me a question, so I'm going to answer it.
I haven't asked a question yet.
Oh, I
I
bet
said
you did.
that you guys haven't shown it yet. But when you're done, I'll ask the question.
Okay, well, sorry about that. But
It's all right.
I personally think, you know, every freshman should have some type, what you call it, freshman academy, advisory period or whatever. The high-level students are never going to suffer as a result of something like that. The lower and middle kids need it to survive, you know, and so I would personally always be in favor of that. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
Okay, my question's on that belt schedule. It says, provide recommendation to belt schedule committee to take into consideration time within the school day for student academic support. And my question was, and you've already answered, I think, is this a study hall? Because when I first got here a few years ago, we not only had study hall, but we also had what we called bilingual lab. And that was to help the non-English speakers succeed in their program. Something similar to the academy, but it was more for the limited English speakers. So I thought, if it's a study hall, I think we found out back then that study halls don't work.
Right.
But your intervention idea will work, and the advisory idea, I think, will work, because we need to be proactive in helping them. But a study hall where kids came in, sat down,
Right.
most of the time, and nowadays they come in, and if you didn't watch them closely, they'd probably still have their devices and work on that. So back then, though, they would kind of look at the wall, and the study hall didn't work, and that's why we got rid of it, I think. Remember study hall?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, back in the day. Study hall.
Loved it.
That's exactly like the first couple of years that Sue Roycevich was actually the first person that did it. And that was what she originally tried. I think we were on blocks by then. I was going to say we might have been on periods, but she tried it more just simply for that, like get your homework done kind of thing. And we discovered that there's not always kids with homework, right? So we had to learn to fill. And so that's over the course of time, I started filling with some of these other things. And then with a math background, and I do a lot of math, supplemental math lessons, but there is that study hall component to it where the kids can sit down and do their homework and get their homework done. And
I have a question. How long ago were you the freshman football coach?
I think the last year was 09,
But before, when you started doing freshman football?
86.
86? Okay.
Yeah.
I remember you making your football players go work for half an hour on their homework before heading out to the field.
Good study hall, right?
And I tell you, we didn't have the ineligibility that other teams were experiencing. So you were already doing an intervention then, and you would do it after school. So this kind of, your expertise in this area since 86 is going to help the Bell Study Committee. And I'd sure like to see you get involved in that to make sure it's in a good part of the day, not stuck somewhere like a corner, like it's not that important. You know, sometimes we try to put our AP courses at the beginning of the day because, you know, this is important. So you might want to look into that. But I congratulate you for having done that back in 86, 87, and those early years when you were a new teacher.
Thanks. I didn't come here I was just wanted to present the program. I wasn't here looking for logs or
No, I remember I was your mentor at that time. You were Chuck Jensen.
I remember that well. Any other questions about the Academy program that we can answer for this?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Randy.
Okay, next agenda item number 2 is AP graduation requirement report.
Well, good evening, trustees and President DeLay. So I wanted to introduce the team once again. So this is one of 7 priorities, if you remember our academic priorities that we brought to the last board meeting. So the team has been diligently working through our schedule. This might be the #1 priority as far as graduation requirements for all of our students as we start to get them to reach the mission statement for this district. But before we get started, I want to commend the entire team and not only the team that's working and going to be speaking on this tonight, but also Director Frisetta and his whole team for the data deluge that they have been under and besieged with requests. But I couldn't say enough about the team, so without further ado, I'll turn it over to them. So thank you guys.
All right. So good evening, Board of Trustees. Recently, in the last couple board meetings, or a couple more meetings ago, we came to you as a team, and I know we remember we brought to you our 7 academic priorities, and we gave you an overview, we presented an overview of what those priorities were, and gave you kind of more of an overview of, for example, what our current reality was, what some of the current challenges would be, and then some of the recommendations or guiding questions that would be needed to look into. So out of those 7 academic priorities, the most important one, I can tell you consensus through the administrative team, would be our A2G graduation requirements. And that's why we're bringing that to you first, because there are a lot of elements to this presentation where we're giving you a more in-depth look at some of the challenges ahead, some of the successes, and some of the things that we're seeing as our first class to go through these graduation requirements, which is our current freshman class. The class of 2020 is upon us, and they are now pre-scheduled for their sophomore year. And so we want to be able to provided here is a much more in-depth look. We didn't have a chance to look at the data in there and some of the things that we've brought forward to you. So first of all, I know that the A through G requirements is not a new thing to the school board in general, but we know we have some new members and we haven't really talked in depth about our A through G requirements in a while. But clearly, we had started on a path several years ago of looking into this because we saw there a need for there to be some equitable access to college courses, courses that have rigor, and being able to prepare our students for life after high school, whether it was college or going in straight into the workforce. What we do know is that the academic skills, and this is I remind our staff of this, we reminded them of this back in August when we first started, but what we do know is whether a student is has a plan on going to college or maybe going the vocational route and maybe going to a UTI, a WyoTech. What we do know is the research is telling us that the academic skills necessary for a student who wants to be successful in the vocational field, in the vocational industry, is at the same level of what a student is required to be successful in their first year of college. So I know I repeat myself when I come up in front of folks, but the days of saying, well, I'm just going to be an electrician, I'm just going to be a carpenter, or I'm just going to do this, those days, that mindset, we have a responsibility now to shift that mindset, whatever's left of it, because the reality is many of those avenues and many of those paths are sometimes, at many times, requiring a higher level of skill in a specific area, like math, for example, right? An electrician on a daily basis is going to use more math than the principal of high school does, and that's actually the truth. So that's really what we're getting at here. And so just a little bit of global data to give us a global perspective, because we always start, one of the things we started as an administrative team, when we go in front of the staff or present, is we want to start with the question, let's start with the why, right? So in 2020, which is obviously right upon us, 65% of jobs will require post-secondary education, including university, community college, and skilled trades. So again, just reinforcing the fact that regardless if a student is going to university, directly into the university, or a trade through the military, their secondary education being required. 34% of students who enter college drop out within the first year. Okay. So again, preparing them to be successful beyond high school. Only 14% of students who begin in two-year colleges with the intent of earning a bachelor's degree actually earn that degree. Now that's not specific to San Benito High School, that's a global. Those are national statistics. And so as we start our presentation, we're obviously going to get down to more specific items regarding our school. And really what we're doing here today is giving you an in-depth look. We're being very responsible and accountable to the fact that we need to be upfront and honest about some unintended consequences with the fact that we're going down a route of A through G, and how that either is or isn't in harmony or in conjunction with the current way we are structured in our academic programs. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Dirks to get us started.
All right, just to get us all on the same page and to understand what A through G means, we're going to go through the basic requirements real quick, and so the rest of the presentation will build off of that. So first, these are the minimum requirements needed to compete and to complete in order to be eligible to a California State University system or a UC school. First, we have the A requirement, which is history or social science. That's 2 years required by the state system and the UCs. However, San Benito High School requires 3 due to a state mandate. B requirement is English, 4 years, simultaneous for both of us, for the state schools and for us. Mathematics, 3 years is required for the UCs and the California State University system. However, 4 is recommended. D, laboratory science, 2 years. However, 3 is recommended. In San Benito High School, we require 3 years due to the NGAS testing that's coming aboard. And then we have language other than English for our E requirement. That's 2 years. However, 3 is required. That includes American Sign Language. And then we have our F requirement for visual and performing arts, which is 1 year requirement. And then last but not least, we have our G requirement, which is college prep elective, which we have a host of various offerings. That's our basic A through G as it's required by our California State University system and our UC schools. Okay? Without further ado, Mrs. Tigers.
So I just wanted to point out to you that Mrs. Heydrich would have handed out to you, we made a small mistake and needed to fix that. So under our 2017, 18, and 19 requirements, I wanted to point out that our E requirement is actually 1 year of language other than English, LOTE, or VAPA. So that was, that E and F was or VAPA. And the F piece also needed to be changed. Is 1 year of CTE, including 5 credits for computers. So that is our current 17, 18, and 19 graduation requirements. Beyond that, I just wanted to point out the changes. So our students who are currently freshmen, our 2020 graduates, the difference between our A through G and CCP in comparison to our past graduation. So social science and English are the same. The letter C, I want to point out that we now require our A through G graduates to have 3 years of math completion through algebra versus just attempting through geometry. And the other piece I wanted to point out that will be slightly different is that in year 2020, college and career pathway is again 3 years of math, which means 30 credits, but they only need to complete through geometry. The other piece that will be different for you to look at is that under E, the language other than English, LOTE, A through G will require 2 years, and CCP will not require any. Doesn't mean they can't take it, it just means that they don't need it for graduation.
So looking at what are those major changes with the graduation requirements beginning with this year's freshman class. And those two major differences are in the area of mathematics and in the area of language other than English or world languages. So in the past, we did require 3 years of mathematics, but only through an attempt of geometry. So now the new requirements are looking at going through Algebra 2. And instead of 1 year of a language, we're now looking at 2 years of the same language. Because this is different, we wanted to take a look at this. Is this a concern? Will students need additional support to meet the rigors of these requirements? So we took a look at the data, and you'll see over the past 3 years, we had nearly 90% of our students take math beyond geometry. So many of our students were going beyond geometry. The next course is Algebra 2 and beyond. So that's good news. That means many of our students were already accessing these rigorous courses. And then in terms of looking at students who were already taking or have been taking the 2 years of the same language, again, the high 80%. So we do want to still keep an eye on that. We know that some of our students may struggle in both of those or one of those areas. So we want to keep an eye on it, but the data is promising that it's not such a big jump after all, because many of our students were accessing these courses anyhow.
So the next two slides, again, you were provided a separate handout, and it would be easy for you to refer back to this throughout the presentation. It's particularly important to take a look at the scheduling for A through G, sophomore year. So right off the bat, when we take a look at scheduling students, we notice sophomore year, if we're doing A through G, that we have English, math, science, LOTE, PE, and social science. And I noticed right away that we don't have any room for electives, we don't have any room for support courses, and as you see throughout this presentation, although this was my initial bottleneck and my concern, there's more concerns that ripple out from this piece, and it's important that you keep this handy so you can look as we talk about the different pieces that we're concerned about, and that we need to actively make sure that we support our students through this A through G process. The second slide here is the scheduling. This would be a sample schedule for your college career pathway person. Keeping in mind that our freshman year, currently our expectation is that students opt into the college and career pathway by the end of their freshman year, that they have opted in. And again, I want to point out that I'm not sure that a 13 or 14-year-old student can make that decision that they are going to stick to that pathway for the rest of their high school career, but that's currently what's in our space. Although freshmen in ninth grade, number 4, we have language other than English, it's not required for them to graduate if they opt in. Remember that they have all throughout their entire freshman year to opt in, so it would be best to have a student start off with a foreign language rather than not. So we talk a little bit more about our current college and career pathway opt-in. So again, just a reminder that the A through G is just a minimum requirement for students to complete in order to be even eligible to apply to a UC or CSU. So that's just a minimum piece. CCP is currently opted into by students prior to the end of their ninth grade year, and they will not meet A through G for a UC or CSU. They must also complete a 3-year pathway within one particular area, one pathway. They can take other courses, but they need to complete 3 courses within that one pathway. There's no language other than English needed. They must complete 30 credits within math, but they only need to complete through geometry. So we need to take that into consideration. Parents and students currently will sign a document stating that they have opted in, and they acknowledge that they will not meet the A through G requirements. And again, we will talk about more in depth about college and career pathways at a later date. So a couple of pieces of data for your reference, and I wanted to make sure that I put the data up there for you guys to see, and we also can make some conclusions about this data. So the Hollister resident census from 2011 to 2015, 72.6 of our Hollister residents hold a high school diploma or higher. 14.4 of our Hollister residents hold a bachelor's degree or higher. And we currently have a brand new CTE building costing our district $20 million. So we want to make sure that with this data we can draw these conclusions that the Hollister community places great value on our college and career pathway options. And we must increase our education of our community about these A through G requirements. The next piece I had already spoken about before, but I wanted to point out quickly to you again. Our current graduation rate is 96.9%. However, our A through G completion rate is 43%. So conclusions could be drawn that the A through G graduation requirements bring new challenges, and they must be proactively recognized and addressed. So for our unintended consequences, we split it into 2 parts to make it more digestible for you. There's a lot of pieces of information that we're going to try to draw together and give you more depth about. I'm not going to talk about each one right now because each slide thereafter is going to talk about each one in depth. But the first portion of it, part 1, unintended consequences, revolves around the 2-year PE requirement, eliminating room in the elective section for our sophomore year.
So in looking at these PE requirements, prior to August of 2016, the requirement for PE was 2 years, and that students needed to pass the physical fitness test, the 5 out of 6 on the fitness gram, I'm just going to say that differently, or they would need to stay in PE their sophomore year. However, if they passed the fitness gram their freshman year, although we had a 2-year PE requirement, didn't mean they had to go directly into PE their sophomore year. Maybe their junior year, maybe their senior year, or maybe they could take advantage of one of the waivers that the education code allows. However, in August of 2016, it was brought forward to the board to adopt a fixed 2-year requirement, meaning students must take physical education their freshman and their sophomore year. So as we looked into this and we really started digging into our academic focus and making sure we were supporting students adequately, that creates a really solid bottleneck in the 10th grade year, especially for students who aren't so sure what they want to do. We want them to have an opportunity to perhaps take a language other than English, as well as look at a CTE course. But as you can see from the schedules that Claire provided you, by being fixed into that sophomore year PE, that really limits students' choices during their sophomore year. So our recommendation, the administrator's recommendation, is to just revert back to the 2-year PE requirement, the prior board policy, so prior to August of 2016. And here's the language from that. 2 core courses in physical education still required unless the student has been otherwise exempted. And those exemptions or waivers live within education code regardless of what a district's graduation requirements are. So students not passing 5 out of 6 of the fitnessgram would enroll in sophomore PE. So that's a big push for students to really make sure that they work hard to pass that fitnessgram in their 9th grade year, so that they have a little freedom in their schedule their sophomore year. Maybe they want to take weight training their junior or senior year, or the outdoor adventure course that we have, etc. So again, administration's recommendation is to revert to the prior graduation requirements. So those are the A to G with the college career pathway, and this requirement as opposed to the fixed freshman, sophomore PE requirement. It just gives students a little more flexibility in their scheduling.
So one of the other pieces, as soon as we started looking at the PE requirement, was that we also have support classes like AVID and ELD that are starting to show some congestion within that 10th grade year. So if you look at that scheduling of A through G for a sophomore in 10th grade, this would be a case study of our current 9th graders that are going into 10th grade next year. The 2 top bullets are ELD students, and what we're finding is that they're not having a whole lot of room in their schedule because ELD is required. They have not been reclassified yet. So that takes the place of an elective. And with that PE course, it doesn't leave them much room to do anything that would require that A through G of the language other than English. The bottom 4 bullets are the students that are in AVID. So we have 144 students that are currently in 9th grade AVID. 93 of those students have a schedule with just 6 classes, which works fine. That means that they don't have any other support class or anything of that sort. But we have many students that are trying to continue with their language other than English, and they're not able to take that, or they're having to take world studies over the summer. Some can't take world studies over the summer. So they're starting to put off that language other than English, and it's causing quite a bottleneck. What we've also found, that last bullet, are there are some students that are going to have to retake courses, especially if they're in the AVID class. They cannot have a D or an F, and if they did not pass their first semester course, they will have to retake that in summer school, and that does not leave them an option their 10th grade year. If you look, there's literally no room. So the recommendation that we have in looking at this is, after looking at the PE piece, we also realize that those students that are in support classes are also finding that they're going to bottleneck in their 10th grade year as well. So part of that recommendation, now that we've looked at that, is to also talk to the Bell Schedule Committee and do a truncated version of this same presentation to show what could we possibly do within the day schedule to possibly alleviate problems that we're seeing with our A-G requirements as well.
For section 1B, so all elective courses will be affected. As you can see from the scheduling piece, even freshman year, they only have room for 1 elective. And when you have 740 students coming in, they have to choose which elective will happen, which pathways they want to choose, where they want to go. I put up on the left-hand side just about all that I could think of the elective courses and pathways. Some of them are pathways, some of them need to become pathways, some of them are standalone courses. So the recommendation on the right-hand side is that the statements above do not take into account any support classes that our EL, SPED, at-risk youth take on top of their regular class schedule, including reading, academy, algebra support. This impacts their schedule every year and further reduces the electives for students who might need them the most. So our recommendation is that the CTE pathway refinement happens through eliminating standalone courses, eliminating pathways that do not lead to high-wage, high-demand jobs without a bachelor's degree, and strengthening our current pathways to have A through G class offerings wherever possible. I want to take a note here that leadership and yearbook, and there's a few others in here that are currently standalone courses, but we want to recognize that those courses they highly impact our students and our student involvement in the school outside of the classroom. So we need to take a look at that as well and keep that in the back of our minds. So additionally, additional information on the left-hand side, I want to tell you what the counselors saw right now with our current 9th through 12th grade. We have all students signed up for next year's classes, and these are the trends that we have seen that are concerning to me. So the first one is that students are pushing off their second year of world language until junior year in order to take an elective. So that means they took Spanish 1 or French 1 or ESL 1, and because they have no room in their schedule sophomore year, they cannot take language other than English. They push it off to their junior year. That makes it very difficult to pick up that language again. The second piece that would be concerning is that students drop math senior year. So they're going through it, they're signing up for UCs and CSUs, they're thinking they're going to go. Senior year, for whatever reason, they decide that they're not going to. They drop math in the middle of the year. They do not complete it because they don't want. They're not going to go to UC or CSU. The numbers in parentheses are the number of students that have done this. So our conclusion for our unintended consequence number 1 is that as one looks deeper into this A through G requirement, the effects ripple out much wider than the initial PE requirement concern. The general availability of all electives, support courses, all those pieces, those students are constricted within our current bell schedule for our students to graduate on time. So this is the second portion. Again, we've split it into 2 to try and make it a little bit more digestible for you. Each of these is going to be addressed in a separate slide.
I'm sorry, would it be okay before we move on to
Absolutely.
Unintended consequences or unintended for number 2 conclusion, that we ask some questions on number 1?
Absolutely.
Because I'm afraid I'll forget as number 2 goes. Your slide for the 1B, all the elective courses and pathways, you mentioned that eliminating standalone courses, pathways that don't lead to high wage, high demanding jobs.
Correct.
Which classes within that are you looking at?
So we need to make a decision after we meet with our CTE advisory committee. So we have all the CTE members, and they are bringing in people from the industry on February 15th, and we're going to get information and input from them before we make any decisions.
Because aren't there people looking into add more different classes? So if you're eliminating some and you're bringing some in, you're still hitting,
Yeah, that's definitely an issue. And so, for example, if we're not looking at an increase in enrollment within the next, several years, then that pool of students is not, obviously we're going to, any program that wants to grow is going to pull from another program. And so our concern, and we've seen this as we move closer to A through G, is that depending on what area you're in, and let me just give you an example, a metals. Let's say just for example is metals, okay? That program, if Mr. Krause, for example, goes and recruits, he's more likely to recruit the same kid that may have already been enrolled in a woods or an auto or maybe an ag program. And so we need to be very careful on how we do that, because when there's no growth in enrollment, and if you keep adding electives, the consequence that's going to happen, it's going to result is that you're going to have more and more weak electives, meaning low enrollment, or electives that don't have no pathway. So electives that have a hard time filling a capstone course. So let's say you have a level 1, 2, or 3 course. The more electives you implement with the same amount of students, you're bound that there's absolutely, I can assure you that there will be pathways that are really not pathways, and capstone courses that will be weak, because kids have to make decisions. And with A through G coming in, there's even more decisions that kids have to make. And we created with the A through G requirements a different set of requirements for the students. And so now we've got this, imagine just kind of as an analogy, we're in this store and there's all these choices, but yet our graduation requirements are really guiding the student down one lane. And yet we've got a couple other lanes that are offering all these things. At some point, not everyone's going to be, there's going to be a lot of stuff left on the shelves, you know what I mean, in terms of courses and enrollment, because we're not increasing in enrollment. And so that's really what we're looking at with that particular piece when we're looking at our elective courses, with interventions within math, our ELD students, AVID. Those are really, in a sense, a lot of students are taking those courses in the place of some of these electives. And so that's why you're seeing a decrease in enrollment in some, not all electives, but in some.
And then I just had a question. If I know Coach DeCarly has questions regarding PE, but is it applied here or just still more PE involved in two?
It would apply here.
Okay.
Well, I have another one. I remember electives not being this, I don't know the word regimented. If somebody said, I want to teach a class in basket weaving, we were advised, well, if you can get people to sign up for the class, we'll have it. That became the way we always did it. So whatever you wanted to teach, as long as students signed up. That doesn't seem to be what we're hearing anymore, that type of what I consider freedom is going to be taken away through this committee. And in the future, sorry, you can't develop any more classes because we're full. It's like right now, in the past, it used to be like clubs. If you want to develop a club, all you got to do is write a constitution and get an advisor and gather members. That won't be possible with this situation.
Yeah.
The unintended consequence then, because I'm sure it's going to be unintended, is you're going to be telling teachers in the future that no more electives will happen at San Benito High School unless there's an emergency and all of a sudden we have to teach, how to build a bomb shelter or something, So, there is a consequence that might happen as a result of this.
Well, I think, Trustee Robledo, one of the main reasons why we dug really deep into this was this information probably should have occurred 2 years ago, prior to adoption of AEDIS, okay? Because once you implement a system, there are so many bumps after the system starts to move itself that now we're seeing those gyrations in the schedules. And what we're seeing is with a flat enrollment, as everybody said, that because of the requirements and the locking in of those requirements to get to A to G, that we have to be really focused and mindful in our approach of how we adopt a class, rather than a previous situation when we were all here, where we did have more latitude. So the A to G is really causing us as a school district to analyze how can we be more precise and focused in what we offer students so that they do have those choices. It doesn't necessarily mean that we couldn't offer a creative writing class that may meet an A to G requirement. It just means that we have to be really focused in how we're doing that.
Yeah, my concern, let's take leadership. I taught that for a number of years. I could see that as a class where you don't get paid very much unless you become, elected or, there isn't really a leadership type of thing. It's a skill that you can use anywhere. But I think if, judging by what you said here, we're going to, I think this is just in the CTE area, right? Not in these other areas.
Yeah, right now we're looking at pathways through CTE and visual performing arts.
So those are the ones we're looking at only. So those kinds of courses like leadership or drama 10 or something may not, well, drama would be in the
So let me just clarify for you. We are looking at the CTE and DAPA in terms of pathways, but we wanted to remind the board and everybody, the public, that we have so many electives, the Mexican American Studies, the leadership piece, that aren't a part of a pathway, aren't in DAPA or CTE, but still hold a valuable piece in our students' education. And we really want to take a really hard look at what are we doing and how are we preparing our students
Would those
to
be
our
in danger?
electives.
Well, it says eliminating a standalone. I mean, you're saying those are standalone,
So for us, what we need to do, not for non-departmental, but to answer your question, Mr. Robledo, what we're saying in our recommendation is there are some issues that are right in front of us in terms of some of the CTE and DAPA pathways, and the point that Mrs. Grissom was making, that even outside of the reason those are also impacted in terms of your CTE and your visual performing arts electives is even within your own core programs, like for example science, we have genetics, We have anatomy and physiology. And then within social science, you have Chicano studies, you have sociology and psychology that are not graduation requirements. They can work to fulfill a graduation requirement. But so now as you, the more you implement, the more you begin to implement more elective courses with flat enrollment, something's going to give in terms of a weaker or a stronger program. And so and when we're talking specifically about CTE, we are, what the data is telling us and what the research tells us out there is that we should be responsible for ensuring that those pathways that we're looking at and that what we have are going to produce a student that's going to have high demand skills, high industry demand skills. And so there's definitely a need for other non-departmental, like for example, leadership, yearbook is another one, for example, those kinds of things that contribute to the student culture. And I guess as a school and as an administration, we have to make a decision based upon our philosophy and what our approach would be to make a recommendation to the board. And that would be the next step for us, because as CTE is one of our other priorities that kind of fits in through A through G, and we would need to come in and make sure that we are very specific about the question that you have. We have to be able to come to you with a very specific recommendation and get even more detailed about that, because at some point, if we don't do something, something's going to give in terms of we're going to have some very low enrollment where we don't have a choice. And so we'd rather make those decisions now.
Are you also looking at the question of whether this decision on whether students should be in A to G as opposed to the career college pathways, looking at a possibility of delaying that decision?
That would be better.
Because when I picked up on one of you guys said about how it's difficult at the end of the 9th grade, and I can well imagine that it's difficult for not only the parents, but particularly the students when they're just getting their feet wet in high school to make that decision. So that's something you're looking at also.
Part 2 will address that piece.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. You've got 43% of class of 2016 completed A to G, another 20% attempted it. So 63% of the class of 2016 either attempted or completed the A to G requirements. Of the 37% that did not, what percentage of those would have completed a CCP pathway, right? Or were they just floating in the wind?
So it would be, we tried to look for that data, and that data wasn't clear because we weren't able to tag students going through classes and pathways.
Okay, so we had 63% of the students attempt and only 43% pass, and yet we moved towards an A to G graduation requirement for the school.
Correct, that's correct.
Okay, risk takers.
Yeah.
We typically, on average, each year, we typically had around a 70% attempt rate, and we've always, last 3 years, we're anywhere from 42, 43, 45% completion rate.
And so we adopted it, and now we're figuring out that we are equipped to do it, right? So it was a ready, fire, aim.
As Sean just said, that this should have been brought to the board before we should have been educated before they brought it forward. There's a lot of boards that say there's no problem with this, let's adopt it. So we weren't educated before.
Right.
And there's real, the team has done a magnificent job. We've identified our priorities, and with a little bit of direction, flushing out a lot of obstacles. We're finding these, and we wanted to be open, honest, and transparent.
No, I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly.
But the one thing we are learning, and I've shared this with the team, is that as we start to progress as an academic institution or with anything, is to get out in front of things quickly, bring them to the board before adoption, so that we flush through issues. Had we done this 2 years ago, we could have avoided the board making a key change, for example. We could have had our pathway set. We could have been working with the community on understanding electives that may have been low enrollment to either bolster them or offer or delete. There's so many things, John, we could have done.
Sure. So what where I'm going with this is that I mean, I think it's pretty obvious we need to address the PE deal, right? That's a big issue. But I think there's a lot of issues with A to G and our ability to schedule kids through that. And so the question becomes, are you guys going to piecemeal this and bring it back every meeting? We're going to have another one, or is there enough time now for you guys for administration to figure it out and bring it back sort of at once, rather than, so I guess what I'm asking is, are we going to take a piecemeal approach to get to the promised land here, or are you guys going to be able to kind of get through the whole thing? I think you guys are doing a great job. I'm not throwing rocks at you guys, so I don't want you to think that I am. But you know, are we going to piecemeal it, or are you guys going to be able to take some time and bring back a solution that kind of takes care of it all after this PE piece, because I think we have to act on that.
Right, and that's a great question. So there are things that we have to do immediately. PE is one that we would recommend to the board to alleviate for next year, right? But bringing a wholesale plan as far as trying to streamline all of our CTEs as a recommendation to you, we would need to do everything that we can for 17-18 by March 15th. If there were any potential. So we are bringing on the 28th the CTE report with recommendations to the board.
So it's going to be piecemeal.
But we have to, the only way we can do it is that way.
And that's fine. I'm not, I mean, obviously I think in a perfect world that we'd all prefer, you know, hey, here it is, here's the solution. I didn't think that was going to be the case, and that's fine. And I understand, I get that. So I don't, you don't need to justify that with
right.
But I just wanted clarification. So I can appreciate it. It's a huge undertaking, and like you said, it should have been done 2 years ago. So I appreciate you doing it.
Corrigan, I just wanted to clarify. So when we're talking about A through G completion rate, the way that's defined is the student received a C or better in those requirements, or validated it as they made it up. And so that doesn't mean that any student that attempted those didn't pass it. But when we say completion, it's at least a C or better. A lot of those students that attempted may have gotten a D. But we don't count it as completion because they wouldn't qualify for A through G eligibility.
But they would qualify for graduation.
For graduation.
Yes, for graduation.
So the graduation rate's higher than that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I was wondering how you got to that 96 or 98% graduation rate.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to that question, so thank you.
Are there any more questions?
I do, well, Tom, I would think that going forward, we would also, before there's a total solution, we'd also want to hear input from that Bell schedule committee, because that may have some impact on it. And then I guess my other comment was, in fairness to administration and the board that was there, I mean, the A through G push, it wasn't just for this school, it's throughout Central California. We had presentations on how that it was going to be good. And I think that we were told that there probably would be some unintended consequences and some growing pains that we'd have to work through. So it wasn't, this doesn't, I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't surprise me. And I don't know that I don't know whether it would be possible to flesh out all of these potential problems. Obviously, there's a few that we should have known about. Yeah, but, we all concluded that there were some huge advantages. So I'm hoping that, and I know you folks think there's big advantages.
I think it was still a good decision.
Yes. It was a great decision by the board.
Sorry about that, thank you.
Not a problem. So this is the second part of it, and again, I'm not going to read through each one, but this one will concentrate around the piece, that college and career pathway and the opt-in option. So we'll be taking a look at that piece in particular. So I want to make sure that we understand that the current college and career pathway opt-in option is decided by the end of the student's freshman year. That's a really narrow window of time for our students, especially since our students schedule in the fall. So we need to make sure that we're aware that they're scheduling in the fall, although they can opt in by the end of the school year. And so our recommendation would be that we are increasing the opt-in window through the end of the sophomore year. So they're all the way through to the end of the 10th grade, but we do continue to keep the 3-year pathway completion. If you refer back to the schedule piece and look at the other side for the scheduling for college and career pathway, for those of you who are interested in knowing why we chose to keep the 3-year pathway, there's plenty of room within that student schedule to complete that 3-year pathway, even if it meant taking 2 electives in the same pathway area in 1 year. That's a totally doable piece for those students, and it gives them more valuable time within that one pathway to make sure that they're ready for that job at the end of it.
In looking at the mathematics requirement, we want to make sure that both the pathway options are highly rigorous for our students. We don't want one to be an easy pathway and one to be a more difficult pathway. Now, with the college and career pathway, there's a little difference in the mathematics requirement. Students are still required, as always, to take 3 years or 30 credits of mathematics, but only through geometry. Many of the apprenticeship programs in the trade schools require algebra and maybe one higher level math. Some actually require even more than that. What happens, though, is that if a student's in a college and career pathway and they come into San Benito High School as a freshman and they take algebra or geometry, then they'd have to take Algebra 2, or they would have to take Algebra Support, for example. So we don't want it to be like a low-level math pathway, but we don't have a lot of mathematics options besides just those traditional, highly academic, kind of college math courses. So what we want to do is really begin looking at, and these are becoming much more popular now, but there's a big push with CTE programs for those high-wage, high-demand jobs right now in the labor market, and we know that in those trades that people are retiring faster than people are entering the job market. It's requiring much higher level of skill, et cetera. So, for example, the UC Curriculum Integration Project, we recently adopted those for our agriculture science program. Those of you who have been on the board for a little while remember that there was the ag and soil chemistry courses or integrated courses, and the soil chemistry, sustainable agriculture, biology, et cetera. So through the UC, they actually integrate courses like an academic course with a CTE type course. So some really neat ones out there that we want to explore. An example is there's one called Constructing Algebra 2. It's an Algebra 2 course that's all around the construction trades. So everything the students do in that mathematics course for their Algebra 2 credit is directly applicable if they're in that woodworking pathway, for example. So we want to look at some of those options for our students, and it might not only be for our students who are in those college and career pathways, but also for our students that want to take a little more non-traditional approach to meeting those standards, something much more practical and hands-on. So we want to take a look at some of the goals. Again, we don't want to water down with a multitude of electives, but if we can start marrying some programs, for example, woodworking and mathematics, and provide really practical knowledge for our students, I think that would be a good thing, and I think it would really strengthen those pathways and make our students even more career ready.
So again, just to give you a clear picture of how many students are taking support courses, we broke down the percentages, and we have a total of 644 students. That's 22%. That's about 1/5 of our students that are actually in a support course. So if you remember what we talked about before, if you are in a support course, it's making it more and more difficult for you to schedule, especially within your A to G and especially within that 10th grade year. So what our recommendation is, again, like we said before, talking with the Bell Schedule Committee to see what we can do to try to alleviate that pressure, especially for those students who may even have to retake a course, or even students who aren't able to take summer school. How does that impact their schedule as well? So although it's really a recommendation, we don't have a concrete solution for it, which is why we would like to explore, and I know that the Bell Schedule Committee will be exploring other schools that are similar to ours in size to be able to look at what they're doing as well.
So as
as a review, in terms of our recommendations, we have up here 4 recommendations that the team, and as a result of taking this in-depth look, as you've already read in the previous slide. So number 1, as we mentioned before, is keeping the PE graduation requirement to 2 years. And the student must pass a physical fitness test their freshman year in order to waiver their second year. Okay, so from the administrative team, as we came and did the new graduation requirement, I was one of the ones up here preaching that health is important. We should have a focus on health. However, as we go down this A through G route, Trustee Corrigan, as you pointed out, is that we realize we can't have the best of both of those worlds if we're going to have to decide if A through G is our focus. We're going to have to make some decisions and some compromises with some other areas. PE is obviously one of them. That was one of the first ones identified. Now, again, we want to reiterate, PE is not really our initial concern, as Mrs. Grissom said. It's not all about PE. PE is one piece to a wider array of issues that we presented here that are causing the bottleneck. But number 2 is extending the opt-in window to the end of the sophomore year. Again, we see it's much more appropriate, especially with the timing in which we schedule kids and the operations of how we go about meeting with them and scheduling their next year. It makes much more sense than instead of after their freshman year, they do it their sophomore year. We've talked a lot about already refining our CTE pathways through eliminating standalone courses and looking at trimming down pathways that do not lead to high-wage, high-demand jobs, bachelor's degrees, so on and so forth. And then working with the BAL schedule to build capacity within the BAL schedule, within the beginning and the end of the BAL schedule for an intervention and opportunities to take courses. And so one of the things we see these interventions. We've got a lot of sort of separate interventions, and we're starting to cover more and more ground with the amount of students that we're offering these interventions to. And so what we're realizing as we have a parallel with the BAL schedule committee is the question we're asking ourselves is why aren't we looking at a more systematic way so that our interventions are all integrated, right? And so our interventions, our current interventions tackle your students that are struggling, your at-risk students academically, and then we have a lot of things going on for your high-end students, AP students that are going into weekend seminars, weekend study sessions with the teachers. But you have a whole array of kids, middle-of-the-road kids, which for me, in my professional opinion, the middle-of-the-road kids at any high school and a large comprehensive high school are the most vulnerable kids on any campus because they easily fly under the radar. And so instead of looking for additional ways to create another course, which would then even dilute our electives even more, we should be looking at a structural way to make sure that we can do this in an integrated approach, which, in other words, something in the middle of an intervention built into the middle of the day. So those are our recommendations.
Thank you.
That last thing, I just want to commend Mrs. Grissom here. As you can see, this has been a team approach, but she, as you can see her up here and explaining, she definitely has taken the lead in digging into some of these things. And I can tell you, she's lifting up rocks that we were kind of hoping she didn't lift up, but she did, and I'm glad she did because these are the issues that we're bringing in front of you today. So she's done a really good job in leading our group and guiding us through this sort of analysis of our A through G.
Well done.
Any questions from the board before I open it up to the public?
Yeah.
Okay, Brian, you're up. Yeah, we can't listen to this. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Brian DeCarly.
Hi, Brian.
Good evening. I have stuff I brought, but then I sat next to Coach Lowe, and I might as well just throw everything out and just listen to him. He said, in 1980, PE was 4 years, and obviously things change and that, but it's funny with sitting there with Coach Lowe and just he is a Baylor. He's always been one, and it's funny how he's been here, longer than pretty much everybody. So it's great to see him, great to talk to him. And he was in P for the longest time. Now he stepped out, he's doing all the academy stuff, but he always comes by still and talks, and nothing's more relevant. I know a couple board meetings ago we had a discussion. P was, a hot topic, and so, I didn't know he was represented at the time. We got to view it on the video. So, immediately after it was posted, we started getting, calls and, stuff saying, hey, what's going on? We're changing policy. I also want to echo that I think the administrative team has been doing a really good job. I know me as a department chair, whenever I go and see Mrs. Grissom, for example, Mr. Ramirez, Mrs. Krokauer, the three that I've dealt with predominantly, they've all been really receptive to everything I've had to say. And I believe they value my opinion and the department's opinion. That being said, we do have some concerns specifically for P, and I've spoken with them as well. I do represent our department, and we have some legitimate concerns. Trustee Robledo was mentioning some of the concerns just about kind of, let's see here, did I write it down? Further ramifications, concerns down the road, unforeseen things, that maybe we could have looked at earlier that we didn't. I know in P we worked really hard to get that second year of PE sophomore year so we could really hold some teeth to the fitness testing. The 5 out of 6 requirements is one of the things that in PE, that freshman year, all freshmen, that's the data that we submit to the state of California. That's where we align our goals for a department around. And we've been busting our hump to get to that point to where it actually has some relevance and actually has some meaning to it. In the county, we have obesity rates in the county is 24%. So it's basically a quarter of the population. If anything, I'd like to go back to Coach Lowe's philosophy of 1980 and have 4 years. But I know that's not going to happen. But there's a lot of relevance to the physical education component. The obesity rate is increasing, it's not decreasing. Having these students, young men and women, understand more about all those health components is really important. And when we continually to minimize or devalue some of those things, even though it's unintentional, I believe that we're sending the wrong message at times. As a department, we have, I'm the most inexperienced member of our department. Most of our department is on the first and second page of the, seniority list. And so we have a really senior department. And when I spoke with them about the PE components, we're, as a department, collectively opposed to going down to a 1 year and then pass out of a 5 out of 6. We would like, as a department, collectively, it was unanimous, to just go back, if it's possible, to where we would have 2 years of PE, regardless of not keep to that freshman and sophomore. Understanding the freshman year, they would have PE. They could go back and take that second year at some other points. Yes, that would lose some teeth, if you will, to the PFT, because we wouldn't be able to hold the students, say, to be re-enrolled again. But we believe that at least having a second year is more beneficial to them than losing some of those students, down the road. The Department of Education, just so you know, I don't know if this has been, if you've had this information before, but the summary of results from the Department of Education the last couple of years, 2016, the 5 out of 6 or more that met the requirement here at the high school was 61%, and in 2015 it was 58.5% that were 5 out of 6 or more. Meaning, if you're looking at some of the, if it's the 1 year and then the opt-out for that second year, if that was in effect, that would mean that 61% of the students would be able to waive out that sophomore year, if that's going to be the recommendation that's approved going forward. Individually, I am concerned about just ramification, unknown consequences later on in the departments. But I can speak on some of the other electives as well. You get to the point with the A through G component where it's just so structured that any misstep, any trip up, and then all of a sudden, there's other unforeseen issues and concerns. And I know you can't see those because they are unforeseen. But from our department, what we're concerned with is what's the next step for PE? Is it at some point, not now, but down the road, is it where we went from 1984 years to, so we went to, well, we had 2 years and then the athletic waiver, and then we went to 2 years freshman, sophomore, no athletic waiver, no waivers in place, and then we're going to go to something else. So I think the biggest concern from our department is the instability and just, what's going to happen next. At some point when you're reducing things to a certain level, is that, and then, for us, is that going to be sections? And then are we going to start to, really kind of tighten everything up after that point?
I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How long, I know that, the board last year made the change to require the freshmen and sophomore. So as a department, what kinds of changes have you seen in, the enrollment, how the classes are going, all that kind of stuff? What kind of changes have you seen since that change in board policy that require the 2 years across the board?
So next year will be the first year that sophomores on the books will be re-enrolled consecutively. Yeah, right now we just, so right now it's just, hey, so you guys know you will be re-enrolled as a sophomore in physical education. You'll have your freshman, sophomore years to satisfy your 5 out of 6 requirements. For the fitness test, and then after that point, if you do not pass your 5 out of 6, you'll be re-enrolled as a junior and then as a senior. So right now, we're in that kind of unforeseen circumstances as well as ourselves. Motivation in general, I'll tell you what we do see is that since we have given more teeth to the fitness testing component, we as a department, not just from last year, but the last few years before that, even anticipating just trying to generate some more, generating the change that we have in the books for next year. We have been just putting in a lot of time in getting our students through those fitness tests. It's not a one done, here's your one test and I'm sorry you didn't pass. Our grading, for freshmen, our window's now open in February, so we'll start testing them. In the sophomore classes, they're doing a lot of it. Last year I came in a couple days and we had like a little boot camp where they actually, came in and we tested students out over the summertime to help push them through. So we've done a lot of work. Setup has done a great job, actually getting it to where we have EDIMs and ARIES linked up so that we can actually see over several years. Because they only have to pass each test one time. They don't have to pass all the tests every single year. Our biggest problem was we were having to basically go through and do human error and sit there, okay, Joe Schmedley, he passed 3 out of 6 his freshman year, he passed 2 out of 6 his sophomore year. Did he pass 5 out of 6 collectively, or they just, did he still fall short? So we were having a lot of problems with that, and Mr. Frazetta, we spent a lot of time this year just getting everything up to where we have, we have real legitimate lists, and we're really focused on those students in our classes as well, to get them there. Yes, sir.
When did they require this fitness test had to be passed? Just a year ago?
No, this has been, yes.
For a long time?
Yes.
And was it still the case then, a long time ago, where, let's say a junior didn't pass it, they have to re-enroll in PE? No, right?
The graduation requirements, at least in my tenure here, have been 2 years for people.
No matter what. So the trade-off that is going to happen is that you're still going to get juniors and seniors in your program that haven't passed that test. They're going to have to re-enroll, because that's not going to change, right?
Yeah, what we anticipate is looking at the, as Mr. DeCarli had mentioned, we took a look at the last 3-year data on the physical fitness pass rates. So based on those numbers, the amount of students in PE that will need to continue taking PE is not going to decrease. But what the concern, so it would still be, we're recommending still a 2-year requirement although obviously they could, if they pass a physical fitness test. Now, and because we were looking at those pass rates, based upon our pass rates right now, there's still going to be a significant amount of students that still have to take PE.
So we
Now,
end up having to hire new PE teachers if we keep with the 2 years plus.
If we didn't let them off, yeah. So what our big thing is, as Mrs. Grissom pointed out, and I know Mr. DeCarli is concerned about, is that because that sophomore year is probably the most crucial year in terms of that bottleneck, is that then a student, because of the other, with the A through G requirements, is to allow that student to be able to take it their junior year, to be able to take an elective, let's say their second year of a foreign language, and if they're still required, because they didn't pass a physical fitness test, to take it, if that student's in that predicament, to be, well, we're recommending so that we allow that student to be able to take that second year of required PE their junior year. Now, there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, Mr. DeCarli and the department have some valid concerns, and so really it's the situation we're in right now is being able to do that versus being able to having a student put on those requirements, other requirements like foreign language, where they have a year in between Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, or whatever the case may be. So there would be, we would anticipate that there would be an increase in older, higher upperclassmen based upon the number of students that do forego that sophomore year to do that. I know that the department's concern when we met with them, I don't know, please chime in, I don't want to speak for you, but their concern was that even so we have the physical fitness test and they still have to pass it, let's say a student never passes it, they would eventually age out, meaning we wouldn't withhold them from graduating for not passing the physical fitness test. We would just require you to continue taking it.
So I got another question for you. So did you guys, I mean, it sounds like to me that the PE department is recommending that we still, require 2 years without any, without any waiver opt-out deal, but then say that the second year doesn't have to be in the sophomore year to be junior seniors, and looking at your scheduling for an A through G student, it looks like to me that it's likely that you have a lot of seniors in PE because that's the 1 year where they have kind of like more electives. They have a little bit, they take more electives, I guess, sophomore and junior, but it looks like to me you have a lot of seniors in PE. So my question is that a good idea? I guess that's one question. Second, did your committee kind of, consider the impact on electives if we were to keep the 2-year requirement, but make it so it didn't have to be freshman, sophomore, it would be freshman and a second year someplace else?
So a couple of things is that we definitely considered that, and as Ms. Grissom said, what we found out at the initial overview sort of look at this, we were like, whoa, there's a bottleneck, it's because of PE. Once she started digging into numbers and starting to take a closer look, she called it, she said, wait a second, it's PE is one piece, one of several other pieces. And so what we realized is that, like back when we were looking at revising the program, we were looking at what we could do to increase the amount of students. Because we have such an extensive athletic program, we have a lot of kids that take 0-period weight training. What we found out a couple of years ago when we adopted the new requirement, we were looking at maybe 125 to 150 more kids that could potentially be in PE. And so even then, we were a little concerned, or we were concerned about our elective courses, because at that point we were thinking, where are these kids going to come from? They're clearly going to come from electives. Now that we're reverting back, these kids, especially their sophomore year, with the current proposal that we have, what we're asking is for them to be able, even if they're still required to take PE, they would go into whether it's foreign language, which is one of the requirements, or an elective that would help them, complete which is now our graduation requirement. So, any elective courses are always going to be impacted at some level with any new requirement that we're adding to a core graduation requirement. So, there's no way of avoiding the elective consideration when you're adding core course requirements.
Thank you.
I'm wondering how the students feel about this, because to students who are involved in athletics under the old system that can get the waiver, it opens up an elective for them. And that's something that we should probably get input from the student part of it. Do you like the idea of having that flexibility that you used to have, or get stuck with 2 years, even if it's your freshman and junior year, you still have to do 2 years of PE? I was from the old school. We had 4 years of PE, and I don't even know how we got electives. But those electives are important, but yet what I also see, the unintended consequences of all these electives and people being able to complete their courses is what we call the unassigned period. Kids can go home at lunchtime because they completed all their requirements. We've had that happen, and that's not a good deal either, because you know, the whole community doesn't know, hey, is he supposed to be in school or not? You know, we have problems, consequences there too. But I kind of like the idea of 1 year of PE with the waivers, but I can see how it could impact PE, but I don't think it's going to impact you in terms of layoffs. I think the opposite's going to happen if you go with the 2 years plus the senior year for those that don't pass the test. I really see your department growing. But I don't know if you want it to grow because your facilities, you still got the same number of facilities, and that could be a problem too.
Looking at the numbers, really what we're projecting, looking at all, looking at physical fitness pass rates and looking at current enrollment, we're really looking at the fact, the reason why we've concluded that PE is really just a small piece is we don't see enrollment really changing much in PE at all. With this, really, the real issue here, our focus is to give the student the opportunity that sophomore year. And we realize, as Ms. Grissom pointed out, is that really there's other areas based upon those other recommendations that we also need to tackle in order to really open up the space. And so I want to just reiterate to the board that this is really not just about PE in terms of a bottleneck. What's specific is PE is a part of the piece of that sophomore year. Or else what we would have done is probably come to you with a more drastic recommendation in terms of waiving an opportunity to waive even more of the PE requirement.
Coach DeCarli, I mean, how are you feeling? I mean, are you okay with the 2 years going junior, senior year? I mean,
Our
administrators proposing something.
Yeah.
Like, what's your?
Our department wants 2 years of PE.
Don't care when, junior, senior
Freshman year, and then
whatever.
give us another year at some point.
So you just want 2 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it was speaking with our department members individually. Hey, what do you want? What do you think? You know, they basically said, I'd like to just go back to how it was.
Yeah.
You know, and meaning, the 2 years, without the waivers in place. But let's just go back to how it was, where it was freshman year, and then they can pick up another year down the road. If it's causing this much of an issue, this much of a problem, let's just go back to where it was. The big fear is just losing a second year.
Next question for you would be, where is, we keep hearing about the waiver, back in the day, the waivers. You have a student who, freshman year, 2 sports, sophomore year, 2 sports, junior year, 2 sports, you know what I mean? You've got students that'll go through here, double sporting, triple sporting, all 4 years, yet they're still required to take 2 years of PE. I mean, they're obviously physically fit, they probably passed that their first year. To allow them to take another elective, right? Let's say they're not strong academically, but they're strong PE-wise. Could there be something in place that could be a petition of some kind, being that's a possibility of getting that way so they can get into?
Yeah, I can kind of, so if the board, our board, 3 board members that were here when we
I wasn't
did
here,
that.
so I have no idea.
No, and I want to just give you a little background. I don't want to put Mr. DeCarli on the spot there with this one because, so we used to have the sport waiver, the multi-sport waiver, where every season would waive 2.5 credits of PE. As we went down this route of adopting what the current one was, we got into a situation where there was some advocacy for example, color guard, band, and there was some folks really advocating for that. And as we started going down that path, what we realized as an administrative team is, and and that was the big concern
Yeah, a lot
of
of
PE,
grade.
is where do you, there's a lot of grade. How do you justify drawing a line between, you know? And so the recommendation, and this was a recommendation that was definitely brought forward by the PE department, is let's just do without waivers, because how are you going to determine where to draw the line with those? And that's how, that was the thought process behind that, and that was where the PE department stood on that issue.
See, and Mr. Corrigan just said that. I don't agree with that. I mean, that's just my own personal belief of that. If you're active, doesn't matter how you're active. I'm a person who hates to run or whatever, but I'm gonna walk my 10,000 steps or whatever I need to do, you know what I mean? But if you're active, you're active, you know what I mean? So if you were to set parameters, then you set the parameters, and then that's where it stands, and that's how it is. I mean,
I wanted to step in from an academic perspective. For the A through G piece, I wanted to point out that if we're talking about waivers here, coming from an academic perspective, are we talking about students who need the AVID class, who need the EL reading class, who need algebra support, and who cannot take that PE class? Are we talking about waivers for them as well? Because that's something to consider.
and that's what I'm talking about. Like, if they're taking a sport and they need ELD, then they are getting that sport, they're getting that PE waived, they're not missing their ELD. They're not missing their AVID, they're not missing their...
But there are many students that do not play sports that need that support class.
I get that.
Yeah, so that, I'm just coming from an academic point, that would be something to consider as well.
There's always a what if. I got it.
Are you done there, Brian?
Yeah, I was done when I introduced
Sorry.
myself.
Well, we want you to feel, we want to know what you guys want. I mean,
No, I
we know what's
appreciate that,
proposed, but
yeah.
what do you
I
want?
think I got an idea.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for your time twice tonight.
And I think, Brian, one of the things, how long have you been on VC now?
Almost, I don't know when the school year starts. This year is my first year.
No, but I mean, well, in the department, how long?
8 years, 9 years?
And the previous 7, we always had the other requirement.
Correct.
And they functioned well.
Yes, it did.
Just curious.
Anything else? Okay, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Great job, Tim.
Do we have a student comment?
No, go ahead.
Go.
So I'm a student that
Yeah.
I haven't passed my physical fitness testing, and I'm going to head into my 4th season of the sport. But I'm still taking my 3rd year of PE. And so my comment is that I think it is important for students to have their 2nd year PE. Like last year I took Outdoor Adventure, and it was educational for fitness. And I still do that on my own today. And so now next year I'm taking personal fitness. And so I think it is important to educate students on the different types of fitness they can take. For their 2nd year.
That perspective.
It's nice to hear from our students.
God bless America. Yes, you go, girl.
I have to say something.
Absolutely.
We just get there now, too.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Okay, we're gonna move on to L3, the ADA Enrollment Report.
Yeah, before we move on, I got one quick question for for planning purposes, it is, particularly the recommendations 1 and 2, is there some, do we need to do that soon?
Yes.
It seems like we would.
Yes, we're really trying.
Yeah, and the reason that has to be soon is because that class is right in front of us right now, which is our freshmen, and they just they're pre-scheduled, and so we need to, they're the ones, the bottleneck is happening as we speak.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the question. So this is information tonight that are you guys going to be bringing this back to?
Yes, February 14th, we bring it back for action. With the board policy change from Director Piltower to get everything back in order. And it's a request.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, that was very good.
Get it.
Okay. Well, as you know, 80% of the district's revenues are based on student average daily attendance. and we monitor that very closely. There's the monthly enrollment, there's CBEDS, and then ADA.
So, hello, trustees. I'll go ahead and begin with our enrollment comparison. On this graph here, you can see we have the big orange bars that relates to our 2016-17 enrollment, and the various line graphs represent the last 3 years. As you can see, we have a P1 at the bottom. That sort of represents the first semester of enrollment. P2 at the very end is going to be the final semester. What do we gain from this? We see our ocean of enrollment ending in and ending out, but overall, it's staying pretty static.
Could you do something for me?
Say it again?
As you talk about each color, can you run it so we can see which one you're talking about?
We have a board member who's colorblind.
I have colorblind, and I request that when you guys put a chart like this up, use a different shape marker. It'd be the easiest way to do it.
Dotted lines,
like you got
Dotted dashes.
circles, triangles, squares, whatever. Because that's all one color.
We can just point at one line or the other.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'll go ahead. So in the future, we will make sure to make dashes or something like that different. In general, out of these 3 years here, you can see each subsequent year is higher than the other. There's really only one spot in month 3 where that middle line jumps up above the higher line and then comes back down again. Are you able to see the...
You don't have like a laser?
I'm good. I think I can work.
So apologize again. Usually we have a laser up
are
here.
16, 17.
Okay.
Yeah, the big
So it's an
trend bars.
upward trend every year.
Yes.
Essentially.
So in general, you can say there's been an upward trend every year. However, we must take note to the scale on the left-hand side. So it is, even though it's an upward trend, it's a very small upward trend, and overall is a relatively static enrollment. Oh, thank you, Sean. So we can follow the first line. Oh, is this? Can you see this?
He doesn't see it. Sorry.
Okay. Like I said, for the future, and if you want, I can redo this graph
I'm
to
good,
have
man.
dashes.
We're good. It's up a little bit every year. I'm with you.
I'll keep track of that for our future graphs. But yes, the overall graph shows a generally static enrollment. And then we can move on to our ADA graph after this.
So ADA, the average daily attendance, and again, the big bar is 16, 17, and we see the upward trend, and we monitor it monthly. But it's always just a percentage. Oh.
Now you're talking.
So the orange is 16, 17, 15, 16 is this line.
Very similar to last year.
14, 15 is this. And then 13, 14, oh no, this is 13, 14. And then 14, 15, we had a big dip in month 4. But generally, it's, this kind of a U-ish shape of kids coming to school. Month 5 is December, basically, and so there's a lot of kids gone. I don't know if a lot of our students still go to Mexico, but that was always what you hear, that they go. One thing on it is we know that Hollister Elementary, we generally get 87% of all their 8th graders, or all 8th graders in the county. Hollister Elementary, from the information that I've seen, was projecting a growth of 277 in enrollment for 16-17, but it looks like they only got 132. And so once, John's going to get their official numbers, but once we have those, we'll be able to make some pretty decent projections for next year. But I guess, again, my only point is, we keep hearing about all this explosion of growth, but I don't know that anyone is really seeing it yet.
The 132, that's over K through
1 year, K-8. Mm-hmm.
So we'll definitely have a triple effect.
Yes.
Right, exactly.
And that's all we have, unless there are questions.
Thank you.
Great job, you guys.
Okay, next one is L4. SARC Report.
So, hello again. So
So in your package, you have our 15-16 school accountability report card. Sorry, it's tongue-tied. So as you're aware, this comes to you. We have a requirement to post this and to complete this February, I think, within the next couple of days. So we have to bring this to the board meeting before. So as you see, you have a copy of some of our most updated data, and so we're bringing this in front of the board for your approval before we go ahead and post it. And again, just keep in mind that the SARC can be revised and updated. There are some changes to how the data is compiled versus the previous years. And so there are some new, so there's some data that we're working on with Mr. Persetta that also have updated in there.
Did you design this?
No, I didn't. I wish I was that good at design, but we, through school services, we have we work with school services to actually come up with the design before it's in. We work in conjunction with them with all the data, the pictures.
You wrote everything that's in here, right?
The team did. So actually, just about every administrator takes a part in this. Yeah, from facilities to technology to curriculum to sort of a community profile. So the entire team takes part in putting this together, and Bev helps me really gather it all and then submit it as one piece before
This is something that we want to put out to the local workers and all of the requirements, folks who live in.
I wouldn't want to buy a house because your U.S. history book is adopted, hasn't been adopted since 2003. Things have changed, So anyway, but it's good. We got adoption dates.
Yeah, this is a California Department of Ed requirement to post, adopt, and post this year.
Well, we look great in everything except math. But, who needs math?
So I can take any questions, or basically we're bringing it to the board for approval.
Page 58, I'm looking at the salaries of our teachers and our principal and our superintendent.
And note that that's 1415.
Yeah, but it's still 14, 15, and it was still the average in other places. Same here. So, beginning salary, we were high. And, I just, that's good information for people.
Any questions or motion to approve?
I move to approve. Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one is L5, adopt resolution 2016-17-17, consolidate COC.
COC is the Citizens Oversight Committee. So, come on, Mary. Go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wasn't sure. So this resolution will enable the district to consolidate the committee, and we benefit because we're finding a lot of difficulty in fully staffing the committee, so we're asking you to please adopt this.
I move adoption.
Second. Yes.
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 Yes. And now L6, reappoint 3 members of COC and appoint 1 new member.
Right, so Debbie Simmons is here.
Laura Park couldn't stay, but she was.
That's why I said thank you.
You're welcome.
Now you know.
And Mary Down have graciously agreed to serve another term. And Ray Rodriguez has agreed to sit on the committee also. So we're excited.
Before we adopt this, is there any plans, any sort of plan to try to find that senior citizen, that taxpayer? And
we got somebody in mind, and slowly making it.
Find a dinner. No, I was kidding.
We think for the senior citizen, if it's someone that is eligible and joins AARP, that would fulfill the requirement. The tax one is more difficult.
Yes. That's good. I like that.
Trying to be creative.
Yeah, there are 2 teachers that retired from Hollister Elementary, and I can't think of their names right now. Holland, that's it, Holland, Mr. and Mrs. Holland.
Amy Holland.
Amy Holland. Somebody should look them up because they are involved with the Retired Teachers CTA.
Yes.
So that's an organization.
Right.
And if somebody can look them up, their daughter is right now a long-term sub at Loud Lane,
Yes.
and they're involved in education, and she's been doing a lot of other stuff, so.
Would you reach out to them because it's really helpful if someone in your position has a member.
They've been trying to recruit me for that CTA. Retired.
Oh, yeah, come on, take one for the team. Take one for the team.
They probably aren't going to fulfill this taxpayer organization requirement.
No, they can do the senior citizen. I'll ask Amy or her husband.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, could you? And then I'll ask their daughter if she wants me to volunteer for her field trip in February. I'll say, if your parents get involved in this, I'll do that.
Let me know tomorrow.
Okay, this is an action item, so is there a motion?
I'd move appointment of as listed.
I take second.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes. Okay, Keith, you're still up here, Roseanne. Adopt resolution 2016-17-18,
Thank you for coming.
prequalification of prime contractors.
So laws have changed since the last time we awarded a contract with the GMP. And the government is trying to maintain transparency. So that's what's behind these new rules. So page 65 is the actual resolution, but there are a number of pieces to the pre-qualification. Page 68 is a questionnaire, and it starts out with just basic questions about the company and then their license, and it gets into litigation and asks for insurance and safety, statistics, excuse me?
Gross revenue.
Revenue, yeah, the size of their firm. The size of their firm will speak to their bonding capacity. So those are the sorts of questions. And it asks for references. It's quite in-depth.
Who does the evaluation portion of it?
Well,
Is that us?
yeah, it's us.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
But Roseanne, isn't there already don't we already have a pre-qualification question?
We had one, but not as in-depth as this. And we had a pre-qualification process. I think the main difference here is the evaluation procedure. I don't think I brought the scoring tool to you to adopt. And I think that's the main difference, that every company that wishes to be pre-qualified could see their score compared to other companies.
That's smart though.
So,
It's transparent.
say this is a little more rigorous than what it's replacing.
Yes.
And so the contractors that we're using now, by and large, would they all still qualify?
Yes. So page 77 starts the actual evaluation. The question, so kind of helping staff or helping the committee go through the actual questions that were answered. Page 82 is the reference form, and again, it's kind of it's a tool to help staff if they're calling on references, the questions to ask, to help, to stay organized. And then the last piece, page 85 is the numerical, helping to objectively quantify the answers to the references. And then 86 is the actual evaluation worksheet. So it's just all the pieces. And again, I think it mostly speaks to transparency.
Yeah, exactly.
Your department's going to be doing this
the board would want to be involved. I believe, I wasn't here when, I believe the board was involved when you first interviewed architects, and then we had a committee for the IOR. So it's however, you want to set it up. We're happy there.
We have a team.
Yes, it definitely would be a team.
Yes.
That guy would be heavily involved.
Any other questions?
No.
So I don't have a question, I just have a complaint. Not, and there's nothing we can do about it, but I raised this complaint, I'll do it again. This kind of prequalification, what it does, particularly with the bonding requirements, it makes it extremely difficult for even mid-sized, local-based contractors to ever get school facilities jobs. And it pushes everything into giant contractor work, and only companies that have been doing it for years get the jobs. Startups, small guys, mid-level guys, forget about it. They're not
So we wouldn't be able to go local if we, now are we adopting that this is our only process to use?
We're mandated to adopt it.
We're
The
mandated.
biggest problem with the locals is that they can't bond.
Yeah.
You know, we have a $17 million project, and they can only bond at $3 or $4 million. They come up short. So that's what Bill says, you get the big guys from, they can bond at those numbers.
Oh, just, you know, I know there's nothing we can do about it, but just,
I'd like to.
Well, I agree with
like
you.
too, because
I agree.
there's so many contractors out there, some of them are personal friends, and they don't even have a chance.
you know,
That's,
It'd be nice if they were subcontracted out by the companies that we hire. That would-
Yeah.
Some of them are.
And I think some of them are.
we do ask,
Like Marcus,
you know, block, we ask that they keep track of the local people, so that does help.
Yeah. Can I get a motion to approve this?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes. And the next one is basically the same thing, but it's for subcontractors.
Right, for mechanical engineering and the plumbing contractors.
So,
It's the same thing, I mean, but for the,
yes.
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 Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
thank you.
Very much.
Principal support.
You
Just stay there. Stay there.
Okay.
Yeah, relax.
Okay, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible here. So a couple things, update from the last time, the principal report. So we are, as we're gearing up and taking some of the steps we normally take to prepare our 11th graders, especially for the SBAC test. This week, our 11th graders through their English courses are taking a full interim practice assessment in English classes. Next week, math will be the same, will be happening. And then, I think I may have mentioned this last time, but those results, we will then get those results, and then we will be doing a sort of a PD activity on February 16th where our whole staff participates in an enhanced scoring activity. And really the purpose of that is for us to get our staff an inside look at where the components of the assessment, and then also take a look at how our students are doing. So that's one piece. As we mentioned in our presentation, the pre-scheduling of all nearly all students for the 17-18 school year has been completed, except for those that were absent or any new students. And so Mrs. Gruesom's next order of business is really going to be to focus in on those numbers and those projections, those initial enrollment numbers for next year. So she'll be full board on that. Update on division reports to the board. We will be, our DCs are continuing to work on the division reports, working with myself and Mrs. Crowpower and Mr. Fusetta to update data and things like that. So as soon as the board gives us direction on when, we'll make sure that our DCs are ready.
We'll start getting in February.
Okay.
February 28th.
By department?
Yes, two. Remember we talked about doing a short.
Yeah, I was going to say just the yays.
Yep. Just a short presentation followed by.
So I'll work with Director Tenenbaum to get those scheduled.
Can we as a board also make sure it doesn't have to follow a certain format, just get whatever information they have to get?
Well, they'll give us the standard packet.
Yeah.
And then they'll come in and tell us.
I just don't want it to be
They're not
hours
gonna
and
bring
hours.
packets to us. They're
Well,
gonna-
we have an existing template that we'll use, and then as the board receives those, you guys can give us any direction as far as what you'd like to see after. Our DCs have really dug into these and are almost kind of done with them. We've been working on them all semester, just so that we weren't working on them all last minute. So we carve out time during our DC meetings throughout the semester for us to work together with our administrative liaisons to work on those reports. PSAT data, we'll be bringing that February 14th at the next board meeting. I'll be bringing you some of that data. And then also Mrs. Grissom will join me in talking a little bit about how we're going to approach getting that information back to our students. As you guys know, maybe all our 9th and 10th graders took that assessment in the fall, and give you a little insight on how we're approaching connecting that information. Really, the key to that, taking that test, is what do you do with that information after. And so we'll present that to you. School visit, we talked about last time we've been able to secure a school visit the week of March 13th. And so there'll be a group of approximately 10 staff members, mostly teachers, joining us. We've solidified a visit to Great Oaks High School in Temecula, California. It's a 2-day visit. They're very excited. Apparently, they're used to seeing schools visit them because they're a model school in a lot of different ways. And so, as Trustee Robledo has mentioned, they've got a very extensive ASB student activities program too. So we'll go there and we'll be more than happy to give an update on what we bring back from that visit. DC Instructional Leadership Team, one of our big focuses right now, and especially as a result of the feedback we've been getting from our teacher leaders and our division chairs, is to begin much more and more cross-curricular work. And so we're starting right now, our DCs are organizing themselves and providing the administrative team with the support they need in order to get together cross-curricular to go to doing walkthroughs on their own. And so, for example, social science and English, there's a lot of skill sets that translate between both contents. And for example, Mr. Barnes and Mrs. Alvarez will be going out together. And really what we're doing right now is figuring out, how do we want to do these? What is it that's going to be worth it? One of the assignments they had is to go back to the departments and make sure they get feedback from the teachers on what would benefit them most from having their MDCs walk through. And really right now we're trying to really mold a peer walkthrough system. And so we're really starting to focus in on that, especially based on all the feedback we've gotten from our staff. We've got a couple things that we're piloting as we speak. We've got some new desks that are a little different than your traditional desks. They're more of a triangle-shaped type desks that have been recommended to us based on the fact that they can be adjusted and maneuvered in a lot of different ways to promote collaborative work with the students. So this is Scale Nehme, who teaches Algebra 2 and Geometry for us, volunteered to do that. She's actually also piloting Surface Pro versus the traditional laptop, and the reason is because she can be mobile and wireless as she's moving around the classroom. So versus going out and purchasing, 500 desks that we don't know are going to work, we want to have a teacher pilot them and give us some feedback on how they. What's her room? I can get that for you. She's in the 400s, but I can make sure I get the board 453. 453.
The desks are all the styles of all sizes.
Yay.
So we were really happy. She was excited to do that for us. Spring sports began yesterday. So right now, at any point in time you were to go out into our athletic fields, this is the most impacted time our facilities have throughout the year because you've got winter sports still going on. Just a little bit past the midway season, and we've got spring sports starting. So you got a lot of things flying around and a lot of students running around.
Who's the referee between coaches?
That would be me. And then last but definitely not least, I'm very proud to say that yesterday, Monday, I know Trustee Tiffany, Mr. Tenenbaum and I were at a Rotary speech contest where we took 12 of our San Diego high school students to the annual Rotary speech contest. It's been going on for years. This year we had more students than we've ever had. We had 12, so we were there for quite a while.
Is that because of your speech debate?
Part of it is Mr. Lastly actually helped me chaperone the short trip from here to Paynes.
It was hard to get people to volunteer.
Yeah. So a lot of kids are being promoted through his program. I also took him so he can recruit because they were actually freshmen and sophomores that participated that were not in his club. But Mitchell Ross took first place, did a great job. Stevie Ray Page took second, and then Ron Chavez took third. So I'm sure Mr. Tenenbaum and Trustee Tiffany can attest that there were some pretty good speeches. But speech and debate is definitely something that we want to continue to grow on our campus, especially because of the benefits.
If we make it to the district and then beyond that, I'd like our person to arrive in the limousine.
So myself and Mr. Lassie have been talking about taking a visit over to James Logan High School in Union City. They are one of the premier forensics programs in the entire country, actually. They were on the map when they came out of Oprah about 5 or 6 years ago because they were going back east and beating boarding schools and private high schools in the East Coast. And so if you want to know if you're ever interested in a premier speech and debate club, look up James Logan High School. So that's my report.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is the Interim Superintendent Report.
So I want to continue to congratulate the administrative team, especially for digging into such huge reports. It takes many hours, and really, the amount of data we're consuming right now. I appreciate that, Johnny, and all of your team. But also Rob and the team with construction and facilities, who's constantly keeping me updated, doing a bang-up job. I want to congratulate the board for a very successful facilities planning meeting on January 24th. I've heard nothing but positives from the staff, the community. People will stop me and say, we really appreciate how the meeting unfolded. We appreciate the board took the time to set some priorities. And I'm going to ask the board that on February 28th that we start to formulate our priorities into action. We want to start moving. We have some items that we can take a look at. One being going out for potential RFPs if necessary for quality complexes, getting some companies in. The second is tracking field. We've identified those. I think it would behoove us as a school district and the board to start that process early to get folks in. I'm going to be touring with a few other board members the Reedley facility. I'll be up in Sacramento at the high school facility. So my indoctrination into the aquatics world is fast and furious. And I would just urge the board to really think about that so that we can get folks in quickly, because the time frame is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 years before our students will even have those facilities. So, also, the other thing is I appreciate Patty Nehme, Trustee Nehme, for attending the Brown Act workshop. Very helpful. I do have a handout for everybody. I sent it electronically as well. I think it's always helpful to gather that. And Director Prokow and Director Cobb. District Facebook. We're going to be exploring having one Facebook account for the district.
Yay!
Instead of 9 million. I don't want how many, but let's just say we have a plus 2 million. And having one person, we really just focus on that as part of their job. And I think that's going to help all the administration. I think it will help other folks, and I think it will help the community. Right now, I look at different Facebook accounts. I look at Twitter, and we've got the AEDIS page, we've got this page, we've got that. Anything with Baylor in it, I've got, and they just pop up. And I think it will help solidify and get information out there. So I'll have more on that. The website, I appreciate Trustee Nehme passing information along on the website, so we got that rectified. But one of the things that we are trying to address, again, are systemic issues in our systems. And we have created our own problems, and we need to create our own solutions. So with that, we're going to look at contracting out the website so that we can have instantaneous results that day and boost our website.
Do you have somebody for that, or are you going to?
We know that, yes. We're looking at Amy.
Okay, so the one from us. Okay.
Yeah, she's did it before, but we kind of went away with it with another era.
I hear you.
We'll get back to it. Promise. I'm going to pass out the negotiator symposium keynote speech to the board members. I gave it to a few of our negotiators, and if you like it, it's from Mr. Greg Gannis. He's probably the premier negotiating lawyer in the state of California, and he's had 36 years of time at the table. And basically what we put together was his epiphanies in negotiations. One, I think, is an old negotiator, Steve, Patty. I think it's a really good read. He goes back through the entire history of negotiations and how we got to this day and age at the table. And I just think it's good for the board. Also, we will be at the intergovernmental meeting. Mr. Zimmerman and myself, Mr. Stano, giving a brief update on student enrollment and projects. So we're happy to be there. We'll be there this week. We're meeting with the county this week regarding joint use projects, the tennis courts, the lights, and the aquatic complex. gentleman from the Sunny Slope Water Board on Thursday to get that project rolling. So I think all the irons are moving again. You know, we're picking it all back up. I really appreciate all the help and all the reach outs for the contacts. But I feel really good everybody's making a good strong effort and getting out there in the community to do that. We have a joint board meeting coming up on March 30th, which will be held over at San Juan Oaks. I'll send out more information to you, but if you want to start penciling that in, March 30th is coming down. I don't know the exact time, but I will get a flyer out tomorrow.
Joint with who?
What's that?
Joint with who?
All the other boards in the county.
The other school boards?
Yes, all school boards. And usually they have a keynote presenter. It's a dinner. Not a lot of discussion about school issues, but more getting together and hearing a really powerful presenter. If you can make it, that'd be great. The school calendar, so I went to the Superintendent's Governing Council, and I met with all the superintendents regarding our 17-18 school calendar. If you remember, we had a spring break that we needed to potentially change. So I met with all the soups, and I'm glad I did because everybody aligned into our previous calendar. So what we're going to need to do on our end is nothing for you as the board because we already have an adopted calendar. For our end is just making sure we communicate to all of our internal stakeholders. And what I mean by that is our two largest feeder districts have already set their spring breaks to our previous spring break. And so in looking at ADA and siblings, we don't want to have a different spring break than HSD North and Monroe County. But they were very happy the first time in 3 years they saw a school calendar at the superintendent's meeting, and we had that discussion. So we're picking up that type of level of discussion to make sure we're in alignment. Director Cobb is not here today, so hopefully everybody gives her a well wish this weekend. She'll be presenting at what's called the Access Special Education Symposium on behalf of our school district. That's just like the Negotiator Symposium one time in the state of California. It's a great honor to be able to do that and represent San Diego High School District. I've talked to a few other administrators about doing this, Adrian. And basically her topic is supplementing the regular program, general education and site roles. And so I wanted to make sure that you knew that our administration is getting out there, so she'll be in Anaheim this week, and I think that's a big positive. Director Crowpower did a great job with FPM, which is Federal Program Monitoring. If the board remembers, Trustee Nehme and Corrigan, you may have been listening in the audience. If not, we had a couple of areas that we needed to clean up in our EL program, and all of those have been resolved. The state has sent our letter stating that we are clean as far as all of our corrective action. We're proud of you, Cindy. You did a great job there. It was an arduous process. And then last but not least, we're hoping to take a team down to the Mid-Cal AXA symposium down in San Luis Obispo. Someone on our team is going to be presenting, so hopefully they'll all attend and come and listen to me. So that should be kind of forcing me to do it. But anyway, I do appreciate everything the board's doing. Hopefully the communication is going well and really enjoying the position.
Okay, we're up to trustee reports.
Oh, this is already.
Let's start with the job.
So I guess a couple of weeks ago, I don't know when it was now, a small group of us went to Presentation High School, Santa Clara, President DeLay, and Roseanne, and Rob and I went to Presentation to take a look at their pools and more specifically their cogeneration plant. The cogen plant heats the entire pool and provides electricity and greatly reduces their electrical cost. And so I've got a call into into Ticogen, which is a company that makes that product, to get a presentation from them. Or start out bringing it to Sean and start there and then have him come to the board if need be. And then we're going on Thursday to Reedley to tour the Reedley High School aquatic facility. It's a 50-meter pool plus a 4-lane, 25-yard pool, and then the surrounding bathhouse buildings and what have you. And Dr. John Quinto, he's the CBO, at I think it's Kings Canyon School District, is going to host us for that, take a peek at that. And so I guess my request would be that, given that we prioritize schools, I'd like to get moving quickly with that. And I don't know exactly what the process for that would be. And I guess the next step would be to put out a request for proposal, or I don't really know. If there's some things that I'd like to specify in a request for proposal at that point.
So we can do, take a look at one or two things, Roseanne, and you might want to chime in a little bit here, is that the board may need to hear, and may want to, desire to hear different pieces of information from companies at the same time simultaneously going out for a request for proposal. So we could do it in two parts. We could have companies coming in to just present information so the board hears the different types of construction possibilities. Or we can have it all done at one full swoop where we're going out for requests for proposal and having companies come in. Really it comes down to how the board wishes to proceed. But I agree with Trustee Corrigan. I think time is of the essence. I think our staff has momentum. They like the fact that we've got some identified priorities. But we're all already hearing, yeah, but I haven't seen a shovel in the dirt, or I haven't seen anything yet. So, we had a presentation from companies in the past, haven't we?
We have two new members.
Plus, John's identified a company that's a lot cheaper. Yeah.
I mean, I would like to specify request in the RFP that any company that bids on it is experienced with stainless steel modular pool design, that is experienced with the Weisburn piggyback bid number 3, that is experienced with regenerative media filtration, because I've done an extreme amount of work over the last 2 years on these things, and I've identified what I think is the absolute best and most efficient. Right? So,
I'm assuming those items you mentioned are brands. So I don't know that we can specify a brand, but we can specify
regenerative media filtration is a type of filtration.
Okay.
And a stainless steel modular prefabricated pool is just that. It's a prefabricated modular.
More than one company that does that?
I believe so.
Okay.
I know there's multiple companies that do the filtration. I believe that there are multiple companies. I think if you specified stainless steel with impregnated PVC, you might not have any. You'd have one option, but
well, that's okay. I mean, because we
should this be on the agenda?
With
Yeah, probably should.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can slow down.
Yeah. We'll work on the polls.
Yeah, we'll just say polls should be on the agenda.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so then I guess my request is that we bring an RFP back to the board for approval at the next, on the next agenda. Is that what I'm asking? I don't know what that's for.
Yeah, do you think we'd have enough time to get the criteria solidified by the 14th?
Or maybe the 28th.
Yeah, because you were saying, John, that on the 28th, we were going to kind of like drill down and priorities. So
Yes.
it seems like we have to have the pool part of that.
Picture's 28.
Yeah, let's do the 28th.
Everybody? Okay.
Or does it have to go information action? Because then maybe the 14th is information and maybe the 28th is action. Or does it have to just come?
I think we should bring it on with everything. I don't want to start piecemealing things out.
Yeah.
So we should probably do it all at one time so we know.
Right.
We haven't even determined the exact location where the pool's going to be yet. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to be as quick as we can, but
Yeah, I'll work with Trustee Corrigan and Roseanne on the criteria, because that'll take us a little bit of time. So, excellent, thank you.
okay.
Remember, so we discussed possibly, like if somebody brings something up, it's something the whole board wants to hear, so I'm going to propose that the interim reports that are being done for math and language arts, that will be dissected in
eventually, you know what I mean, that you're gonna PE and grade and score. If there was an idea that after you're done, so there's no rush there, that it's brought forward, so we kind of have a snapshot of what we're looking for CAF. Does that make sense? So we have an idea that how they're scoring, like, you know, were they all below, were they at grade level, were they approaching, so we have an idea of what we're looking at as a board academically to possibly, you know, precursor to what's coming up with CAF. If you guys agree, after it's scored, again, I don't want any rush on but I know they're both being delivered at different times and they're gonna have to be scored, but are you guys up for doing that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it,
I attended the 3 Peter School Assemblies, Spring Grove, Mays, and then Rancho, and we've been making use of a truck to take it down, so I've already talked to Sean about this, that we really do need a maintenance truck that can haul a lot more. The one that was borrowed from the Transportation Department has a lift gate, but I really believe that maintenance, and I've been requesting this for 2 years, so I figured if I run for re-election, that's going to be my goal, to get them a truck. I'll run on that platform, a truck for maintenance. That,
Three trucks being purchased?
Yeah, they're all,
They were grants, though.
Yeah.
but I would really like to,
Is that to fill that?
maybe, should we put it on the agenda and discuss truck? What do you guys think? Or can we just have somebody look into it?
I think I don't think we have the money, I mean, if we're gonna buy a truck and we're not gonna get a grant, then we're gonna have to come with money.
Yeah.
So I think the board's gonna have to say, okay, this is a priority of the board, and you're gonna go buy a truck. So I think I think it needs to come back to the board if that's the way you wanna do it, because I don't think we can just tell him to go buy John to go buy a truck.
Yeah, I know that.
So I think he's gonna need, we're gonna got something, or we're gonna take out reserves or something to do this, so.
But, you know, the reason I'm saying this is that it's not just a truck for maintenance, it becomes a truck for everybody to use. Graduation, taking stuff out there. So do you want to put it on the agenda? Or
If we can get consensus.
Well, didn't we just get 3? I mean, are those able to work with what he's talking about? I have no idea. I didn't see him, I don't
They're
know.
utility trucks.
I don't know what they're. They have
we-
boxes on
It's like a
them?
pickup truck.
Okay, I didn't know.
Boxes.
Okay, I didn't know. What
He's
they-
looking for a flatbed or.
good sized flatbed.
My dad's got one.
That's what they did with the last 2, didn't they?
I think it was 1950s, I think it was brand new when it came to history.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys want to put it on the agenda, but I watch maintenance struggle with taking all these stages out there. It seems like as a district this size.
Okay, so what do you guys, anybody else want to bring it up to the agenda item?
So, well, I just kind of, should maintenance maybe let us know what they think they need, rather than us tell maintenance what they need? I mean, that's
No, I mean, that would probably be part of the discussion.
right.
Sure. Let's talk about it.
Okay. You got it.
All right.
Okay. So
And then,
one of the future agendas.
I found out I was watching the sports marching. They do a very good program, and one of the people missing was the male volleyball player. So of course I asked, why don't we have a male volleyball player? Oh, he didn't make the list because he had 1 hour detention. I go, what? So that I thought, are they still doing that? And so I thought maybe we need an agenda item where we look into, is this affecting just activities or athletics? Because it used to be a big problem, and as I said years ago to Debbie Padilla, making certain things a clearinghouse can have an effect on those activities. Winter ball, we're not even having one this year, but I predicted years ago that it's going to affect winter ball to make them a clearinghouse for bills and hours. And a good example of that was a wrestler that couldn't be on the winter ball royalty because he had 40 hours of detention. But he could wrestle.
I was gonna say, should be wrestling.
So he could wrestle, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a little bit of something called inequity. So could that be an agenda item when we look
Yeah,
at?
and just so you know, currently, we hold the same standard for athletics as far as that piece, but we can definitely bring that back.
Okay, well, when you do your discipline report.
How about if we just ask to be part of the principal's report?
Okay, can we do that?
Absolutely. Thank you.
And graduation's coming up, and I wanted to let you know that I'm really sad here. I'll be in Texas. My godson is graduating on the same day. They have something like 10,000 seniors, I think. And a little bigger than, that's near the school that paid $60 million for their stadium. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, I wanted to announce that now, but I still want to get involved in helping with the planning. But I'm announcing it early enough so that you guys all attend and shake hands.
No way.
Okay.
Anything else?
That's it.
I don't, nothing for me. Okay, so we're moving up to the consent agenda, and I guess we're gonna we got a bunch. Let's start with M21, which was the AEDIS master plan.
So we got rid of that, correct?
We're gonna pull to discuss it.
Oh, you're pulling it to discuss. Thank
Yes.
you. I didn't know what that meant, so.
Sorry. Yeah, we're gonna. And John, you want to start, or you want me to start?
Well, since I don't, since I'm new to this and I don't want to do it, I'll go ahead and start out by sticking my foot in my mouth.
That's okay.
I think this proposed contract, a fee not to exceed $25,000 to update the master plan is highway robbery. I mean, I fell out my chair when I read that. I think that if it takes them 25 grand or anything approaching that to update the master plan, I think that we need to seriously evaluate our architecture firm. And I was floored. I mean, maybe if it was not to exceed 2,500, I would have batted an eye. But this is outrageous. And I'm not interested in improving.
And I agree with you. I was going to try to get a meeting with Fang and say, hey, we're making millions and millions of dollars off of this.
Yeah.
A master plan update is bouncing a couple little pictures around on your screen. I mean, it can't take you more than a few hours to do that. So
And probably a rookie architect straight out of Cal Poly.
yeah,
It's making $10 an hour.
So we could recommend that we table this for.
yeah.
And so will you be on that?
Yes. I'll get a hold of them. And then so the M2 is mine, which is the expanded of the ag. And unless I'm reading this wrong, I've got two numbers on page, can't read this out of my glasses, 119, I think, and 118, 119, one spot it says 900,000, the other spot it says 2,200,000. They both say the first phase of the ag conversion. So I'm a little concerned that their numbers aren't the same.
So I see the 169 and where else are you?
If you look right above that,
It says 2.2 million.
right above compensation, it says the new estimated construction cost. Phase 1 is approximately 2.2 million. Then if you go to the next page, the estimated construction cost for the first phase is approximately 900,000. It's about 2/3 of the way down.
Yes, that page 119 is the original proposal. And before we knew about all the seismic stuff, that's.
So it's up to 2.2 million.
Yes. Well, the estimate, but yes.
And so this, see that, I thought the original estimate was around $1 million, which I thought was reasonable. I'm not sure that, I guess, I'm concerned we're spending $2 million on upgrading that facility. Just versus.
You could build one.
So this is for the concrete tilt-up building across the street?
It's not, it's actually where ag is, it's actually wood construction.
Oh, it is, okay.
Where the ASP would be based on.
So you got the Matson gym, and then you got the dance portables, and it's
It's the next one.
that's the one that the MDF
Yes.
room is in the back of?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a wood structure, I like that with concrete tilt-up. Okay, and so they're saying $2 million to retrofit that to put ASB in there?
Yes. Well, their original was 900.
Bathrooms, they're moving bathrooms and they're moving because of ADA compliance, and so then that means the utilities have to move. And we're also adding windows in it for snack bars to make up for the ones that we're tearing down and
Still don't see what that is.
our ASB.
Oh, the 300s, the old stack bar, the 300s.
And so it's $300,000 just in the architectural fee.
The fee should be based, and that's one other question, are the fees still based on OPSC's scale? So it's a percentage of the construction cost?
Also included in that, on the east wall, they have to skin that open because we are cutting the access windows for the snack bar into that. It changes the structural strength, so all that has to be beefed up also, from top to bottom. That whole east wall, that face, so pretty considerable work. And it requires some footing issues along with all the structural strength of the stick building.
Rob, in your estimation, is it a worthwhile endeavor to try to renovate that building, or?
Absolutely, it's in great shape. And eventually, ASB will go in their house for a while and then eventually become the student union. So it's in great shape. Of course, it needs a new roof on it, but the bones are good. And it does house our new ABF room. So.
And Ron, this would be the first phase of a multi-phase project, so
some of this work,
wasted.
yes.
Right.
Some of this work is, again, it's going to lead to the long-term final project of that building. While we're in there, you might as well do the work while you have everything opened up. That's going to include moving the gas meter that's on the northwest corner, that large meter right there. That needs to get out of the way for access compliance for the stack bar area. So there's considerable work to be done.
So by the time all the phases are done, you're talking. That's why I'm kind of wondering if we're from start to finish, by the time you get to where you want to be down the road and around the corner, would we have been better off running a bulldozer through there and starting from scratch?
You have to estimate what's a new building that size costs, and then you look at the retrofit.
I guess that's what I'm asking.
In my opinion, that size building for that square footage and what it offers on the second floor and the capabilities of that, it's worth it.
It's worth it.
What I'm wondering about, since we asked at that, that facilities planning meeting, we asked AEDIS to come back with kind of a refinement of their, projected costs and what have you. I'm wondering if we shouldn't, delay adoption of all these contracts until we hear back from them, and then also at that same time, we could ask them, not just Rob, but we could ask them what are these questions to get that fleshed out. It doesn't seem like, for instance, with that, the ag conversion building, it seems like that we would want to at least know the timetable of the closure of Nash Road or something. I don't know what I know we've all decided that's important to do it, but I'm wondering if, I guess my question is, are we gonna run into a time problem if we delay this stuff, ask them to come back with their refined figures on, priorities in general, and then at that same time be able to ask them more specific questions about some of these contracts?
That's a great question, and time will be a problem because as we were talking today with Brad Fannin from Block Construction about the new AB 2216 law that's implemented for the lease-back requirements, the timeline that we're looking at to actually go through the procedure of the required advertisements and all that good stuff that you're supposed to do, and then the longer you wait, the closer you get to summer, and President DeLay can attest to this, is you want to get that bidding package out there as soon as possible to get the best pricing and the best subs on board and locked in. And the longer you wait, you're going to get kind of the bottom of the barrel and your pricing is going to go up. So they know you're going to be in a bind when you get ready to start your summer projects, and so they're going to set their price, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So the sooner the better. So with the timelines on that, moving out ag into the new building, the new CTE building, all that good stuff, we would not be able to get into that building and start the retrofit until they are exited out of that building.
Okay, so give my idea. What do you think?
I think you're on the right track, because I think what it is, again, we're bringing these in as single items.
Right.
And now we went from, I think, $1 million to $2 million. So on our priority list, does that mean one of our other projects is gonna get cut out? I mean, we don't, if we start doing them piecemeal, pretty soon we're gonna say, okay, now we can't do the science building because we don't have enough money.
Yeah.
So I think we need to do it all at once. So I think on the 28th, we bring them all back. And we discuss it as the big picture, so we don't start making mistakes.
So we have a full amount of money and we have a full amount of contracts,
Yeah,
and we
we know what the
go
numbers are.
A minus B, you know?
Yeah.
And they took a cafeteria out and added $1 million.
Yeah, we phased out the cafeteria.
So I think it's kind of, what are we approving for $2 million? You know, I mean, I think we need to see the full plan from all phases to the end of, when that building's fully done, what are those phases going to cost, and start from there, because this seems like you got home at midnight that night after the meeting, scratched out a couple lines and added some numbers. I mean,
Well, if you, just in a small defense, if you notice the dates on these, I've been seeing on them for quite a while.
December 9th.
I think that's a great plan. Bring it back into the table and get some clarity on all this and see if we can bundle it together. And as far as the national closure, that's a key point. When is that really going to happen? When they're going to start? When we're going to see a rendering of the roads, see how it impacts the property that's going to be left for us to possibly build on out there. I'm still really interested in seeing that piece of it also. Because there's a lot of entities that really would like to use that property, and they're going to be coming to you guys to kind of state their case.
I think there's a lot we need from our architect right now, other than invoices and contracts to write a bunch of checks.
Yes.
All right, and then the next one was M5, and that was Mr. Robledo, I believe?
Yeah, it's on page 146. Yeah, and
146?
For the stage, for that.
for the stage.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. I have M2, M5, okay, it's got it. All right, sorry.
Darren was able to secure the price.
Yeah, let's say that. For me, it's the first time I've heard about this. When did we find out that they had to redo this?
What do you mean?
Yes, before we had a ramp and a stage. This is the stage for graduation, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the stage for graduation.
Did you use this last year?
Yeah,
Yes.
we used it last year, yeah.
Oh.
We've only built now there's a permanent back.
Yeah.
So that's all that's different.
Yeah, so what happened is that, Rob can comment, the previous stage was.
Yeah, the previous stage, we decommissioned it. I believe Carol Heydrich's husband built that stage. And years ago, when Gary Cook was still here. And we just kept...
The graduation committee of 1997 were the first ones to build it with the ramps and all that. The cost was $7,000 or $8,000. And they were the first to raise the level, and then they got the board off the stage, which is, making it smaller. So now, this is already done 1 year, so does this mean that in 5 years we buy this thing? It's ours?
No, this is just to use.
Just rental.
Just a rental, and the issue with the other stage also was ADA compliance with the slopes for the height and stuff. The ramp wasn't long enough, or because of the height. So now this company comes in and basically constructs it. We extended the lengths of the ramps. Darren and Adrian had talked because of the ramps were too short last year, and the rows of the graduates is dictated by the length of those ramps, and so the ramps would be 20 foot shorter than the rows coming out. So we try to compensate that way and ask them to design something a little bit longer. And
I hope they design a wider one because it was too tight last year. And I won't be there, but
That was one of the big recommendations, to make more space, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, well,
Okay.
I'm all right.
And then we had some, it was mine, M7. I just wanted to point out that 1 month our utility bill from PG&E were $23,000, and then this is the second bill list here on page 16 went up to $53,000.
I'm trying to get there, sorry.
We're $52,000 on page 16. So we have a major jump in
What page?
16.
No. Red numbers.
Oh, 214.
Thank you.
Sorry. Is there something going on in there?
Yes, we didn't get the new meter over here by the
Oh,
cafeteria.
so it's
Wasn't
back there.
read.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Okay.
several weeks.
Yeah, it's one of the new main meters that we put in as a power upgrade. We finally met with our rep, our PG&E rep, because Roseanne was doing a chart and tracking all the usage on campus, especially the new meters that we put in. And we noticed that one was absent, so we luckily got a hold of her, and then they all came in at one time, and that kind of slapped us.
And that reflected a previous report, correct? Saying that it wasn't being read or something, because I remember
Yeah, now
that.
that you mention it, yeah, okay. I was just doing Ray's job, so.
Then have we bothered to look into, because that was something I did ask in December, have you looked into checking usage
I do every,
monthly? Like, are we going up than last year? Are we,
dollar-wise, we may be a little up, but kilowatts and therms were about the same.
okay, good. Because that's, you know, same thing with me. I'm down 4 therms, but I'm paying more. I mean, the gas is different, but yeah, okay. I just wanted to know what kilowatts and therms were.
Okay, so if I'm correct, we need a motion to approve everything with the exception of M2, 1, 2, and 3, which will come back on the 28th.
So moved.
Yes.
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 Can I go back to the trustee report thing real quick?
Go ahead.
So I know, a couple of years sitting in the audience, solar has been kind of brought up and gone away. And I spoke to a gentleman last week who is a retired school administrator, and he's done many solar projects down in Southern California.
Don't be the superintendent.
No.
Retired superintendent, because those guys go into the consulting business and they'll sell you anything.
No. This guy actually, this guy's a friend of a friend, and he knows. I can't think of his name right now, but he knows of Roseanne. But his name is Joe. I don't remember his last name. But anyway, he does this, and he said that what I said to him was that, hey, look, we just need to know if solar makes sense or not. Right? That's the bottom line. And he's willing to look at our PG&E usage and give us an idea if it makes sense or not. He's not trying to sell us anything, but he'd be willing to look at it. So if it pleases the board, I can connect him with Roseanne and
Well,
look at it.
I don't recall, a couple of meetings ago, it might have been the December meeting, the board approved a contract or permission for Climate Tech. We did an RFP.
Okay.
And so we're meeting with them tomorrow morning to look at the whole district energy-wise, solar, everything. So they're meeting with Rob and I at 7:30, and then a gentleman's gonna walk the campus with one of Darren's guys.
Okay, cool.
Come back with some kind of a recommendation.
Or solar or cells and stuff like that?
Solar or light bulb, the whole bit.
Are you going to
We just
discuss
redid our high
coordination
school.
with
Like,
them?
I was going to ask him this.
for LEDs.
All right, I'm done.
Okay, our next meetings are February 14th, February 28th, and can I get a motion to move to closed session? So move.
Second, yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Did I say no?
No. Yes. You did great.